Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 32 of the Former Action Guys podcast. I'm your host, Justin Kramer. And yeah, this week I have my first soldier on. Staff Sergeant Gregory Raith comes on. He's an Army Fister and a JTAC. So he comes on and talks about some of the differences in how the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marine Corps, how we employ our fire support and stuff like that. And we also talk about some of the differences in CAS-specific employment and stuff. Overall, it's a really good conversation, and I look forward to having him back on in the future. So we picked up another 5-star review on Apple Podcast. It says from Mountain Dew, DEW. I assume that's somebody's call sign, so thank you, Mountain Dew. It said, dude, where's my CAS? I subscribed a while ago and didn't spend any time listening to the episodes, mainly because it slipped my mind. Glad I started listening to them. Keep up the good work, man, on all your platforms, and you'll have my continued business and support. From Dan. I appreciate the kind words and for the continued support. I had a message over on Instagram from Noah_Klein. He said, just listened to episode 30 last night, and I fucking loved it, and it was like 3 hours. I cannot thank you enough for making long-ass podcasts. No problem. I know some people don't like the long-ass podcasts, so make sure you're over on my YouTube channel, subscribe. I've made a best of a top hits playlist, and I'm going through the podcast and listening to some of the stories and the best ones and stuff. I'm just pulling them out of the podcast and putting them on their own. So right now I think I have 3 or 4 up, anywhere from 10 to 20 minute clips. So obviously way shorter, and you can consume it faster, and it give you that little fix, until the next Former Action Guys podcast comes out. So make sure to check that out over on YouTube. And if you're not on Apple Podcasts, like I said, and you want to interact with the show, get on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and then you can get on there and make comments and, throw up that like button on the videos that you like or on the episodes that your favorite. If you throw in comments and you ask questions to me, I can obviously answer them right there. If it's for one of the guests, I'll make them aware, if they're not already, that someone commented on their video. So if they can come on and answer a question, but, I'll see what I can do about that. But yeah. You have to get on YouTube to be able to do that. So get on there, subscribe, and then hit the notification button so you know whenever I'm releasing all these extra videos as well. And those are only on YouTube. That's not on any other platform. So make sure to check that out. Okay, so yeah, finally, make sure to check out my website, jkramergraphics.com, and my Instagram page at jkramergraphics. That's jkramergraphics.com and at jkramergraphics on Instagram. You can also email any questions you have to formeractionguyspodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, so enjoy the episode. Let me make sure everything's set up on my end. So you're out at Fort Sill?
Yes, sir. Yep. Good old Oklahoma.
Yeah. I had my gunny back in the day was trying to get me to come out there. Or he was like, you should really go out there and teach the fires course. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, he was like, you can't be a JTAC forever. And I'm like, I will try as hard as I can. Because in the Marines, you only get to do it for a couple years normally. And then they send you back to, being a regular fires chief for whatever reason.
That's kind of how it is for us. I mean, I'm probably one of very few conventional Army guys that are lucky enough to have been able to become a JTAC. Mm-hmm. And it's just because of an agreement between the Big Air Force and TRADOC for the Army that basically says we're allowed to do that. Normally you're only going to find that in the Special Operations side of the house, Rangers, mm-hmm. Green Berets, or even the 13 Foxes within USASOC support roles. So I kind of am lucky there. And it's definitely, kind of makes me want to stay at Fort Sill so I can keep being a JTAC. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it kind of gives me the opportunity to move into USASOC roles a lot easier than other guys would be able to.
Yeah, you've already got a box check that sets you apart.
And they're like, oh, I want you, you're not airborne. And it's like, yeah, but I'm already a JTAC. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll take you. That's kind of actually where I'm at now. I'm actually in the process of moving to Fort Bragg later this summer.
Fort Bragg.
Yep.
I've been there a few times for we do or used to. I don't know if they still do. I'm sure they do, but
probably
used to do an exercise called Rolling Thunder twice a year. They go out there in like March and October and then just shoot arty all day, every day, 7 days a week. I think on Sundays, some Sundays they would stop. No.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice they would stop or we wouldn't shoot, but most of the time we're just shooting the whole time. There's always complaints from the local community about how loud it is and shit. Because there's an entire regiment shooting, which is like, I don't even know. That's a lot of guns, so if they're all up. But
yeah.
Anyway,
right.
So you're the first Army guy I've had on here. So
okay.
I'd like to go back and start from the beginning and kind of talk for you because I have a few people that listen to the show that are considering the military and stuff like that. And they obviously hear a ton about the Marines and stuff. How does the Army choose? Because I know you have multiple boot camps. Like at the Marine Corps, we have Parris Island and we have San Diego, and it's basically a geography kind of thing.
Yep.
I know the Army has multiple boot camps, but they're based more off your MOS. So you want to go ahead and explain what your MOS is, and then what year you joined and kind of all that.
Yeah, so 13 Fox by trade, so fire support specialist. And then as we progress up in rank, our MOS actually the title changes, right? So currently I'm a fire support sergeant by pay grade, but in position I'm a senior instructor writer. So when you join the Army, you automatically become a fire support specialist. That is our skill level. That's basically what our MOS is tied to. And then you're really called that from what we call skill level 1, which is private E1 all the way through specialist, E4.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll sit there and you're going to fill a bunch of different roles. And then you'll move up to sergeant E5, which then you could be a platoon FO. You can be a fire support sergeant. And at that role, you're typically just some sort of support, whether you're going to be like the night shift, fires NCOIC, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or you might fill the team chief position, which for us is a E6 staff sergeant position. And then you kind of move up the pay grade from there. For us, you tend to see us come to basic at Fort Sill just because it's the fire center of excellence, right? Home of the field artillery. Yay.
Home of the king of battle.
Yeah.
I was told many times while I was there.
Oh, yeah. King of battle. But I when I went to basic training, just about every MOS with the exception of MP, 11 Bravo, 11 Charlie, so infantry guys, tankers, Cav Scouts, pretty much everyone. I had every other MOS, right? I had HR, I had medics, I had let's see what else I had. I had the officer candidates, school candidates were in my basic training. And then when I got to advanced individual training, which is like your MOS school, right? We had guys show up that were in South Carolina at Fort Jackson. We had guys show up that were back before they closed Fort Knox at Fort Knox. We had guys from Benning. So we had a lot of different geographical locations. And basically the only guarantee in the Army as far as location of basic is pretty much your tanker, your Cav Scout, your 11 series, so your 11 Bravos, 11 Charlies, and then typically your 18 series guys are special operations candidates, because you can come in the Army as a special operations candidate right out the get-go.
Yeah.
They will all go to Benning. And your MPs will go up to Fort Leavenworth, or sorry, not Fort Leavenworth, Fort Lost in the Wood.
Leonard Wood.
Yeah, Leonard Wood. I always say Leavenworth for whatever reason. That's probably where all the MPs should go.
Probably, right?
But yeah, so I joined back in 2010. So I've been in for almost 10 years now. This June, it's 10 years.
Crazy. Does that feel crazy to say that?
It is, man. And it's actually funny. I'm still friends with a lot of people that I went to basic with, AIT with, right? And, progressed through the Army with. And I'd say probably of my first duty station, which is Fort Lewis, Washington, I had, let's see here, I probably still talk to a good 30 or 40 people from my company, right? So about 120 people in a company. I'd still talk to about 30 or 40 of them, all the way from the company commander down to other privates, right? I still talk to all of them, and 70% of them are out of the Army now. It's just, so you sit here and it's like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm a truck driver. I'm this. Like, what are you doing? I'm still in the Army. So I've got a bunch of good buddies that are all 13 Foxes that I went to AIT with. They're all out now. A lot of them were medical discharges, just from injuries from our deployment to Afghanistan in 2012. Staying in contact, and it's just crazy that you sit there and like, oh, what are you up to in life? And I'm like, I'm still in the Army,
just doing this Army thing.
Yeah, I'm just here. I don't really. I knew what I wanted to do in my life. My plan from the get-go, from a young age was go to college, become a cop, and then that was it, right? I was done. That was my plan. And then obviously life, changed some, and I was like, you know what, military ain't such a bad gig.
Yeah, it's not.
So and so here I am, and I'm definitely thankful that for the opportunity. But it's everybody always asks me like, why Army? Why not Air Force? Why not Marine Corps? Why not Navy? One, hate ships, so that pretty much took the Navy right out the boat.
Dude, they're the worst.
I love the water. Like I love being on the water. Right. I always went to Camp Pendleton. My grandpa's retired Air Force, so I always got to go to those little cabins up on the beach.
Oh yeah.
Of Pendleton, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up around the Marine Corps, right? I mean, my grandpa's retired Air Force, but going to Camp Pendleton, I mean, I think I was 6 or 7 the first time we went there, and I went there every summer until I was like 16.
Yeah,
I mean, so
that's a great beach. That's a great area.
Awesome. Yeah, and so 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, you see the Marines running down the beach, calling cadence out and stuff like that. And it kind of just, that was kind of one of those moments where you start to see the discipline of, and you kind of were like, man, that's something I could strive to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa, I'll never forget the day I told my grandpa I was joining the Army, and he looked at me and he called me a stupid motherfucker. That was the word, right? Like, I mean, mind you, this is 2010. Right? I mean, Afghanistan, Iraq, all these wars are just going on, and so he's looking at me as his oldest grandson, and he's like, this motherfucker's gonna die.
Yeah.
So it's just, I looked into the Air Force. I went to the recruiter and, got basically hey, you can't leave for basic for 12 months. Hey, you can't pick your job, or hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I was just like, dude, that's not cool. Like, I don't want to go to training and not know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Marine Corps.
Air Force lives the life, but they're hard to get into, and they're hard to get like.
Unless you're TAC P.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're always looking for those guys.
They're hiring like crazy.
Yeah,
especially former Army guys.
A lot of guys get out of the Marines that are JTACs or consider it. It's one of the paths that our guys consider, because the Marine Corps, we love being JTACs in Marine Corps, but a lot of times you don't feel like you're being utilized right. And you see the Air Force how many more missions they're getting and how they're being utilized, and it's like, dude, like if I want to stay in the military, but fuck, man, they give them bonuses for being JTACs and everything else. So
it's big. I mean, it's. So I'm one of the, fortunate few that I'm very plugged into the Air Force community, being, because Fort Sill, we don't have our own JTAC program. I actually fall under 6 CTS based on an Ellis Air Force Base. So the guys that run JTAC QC, right? Yeah. At least the stateside JTAC QC. So I fall under their program. So I'm kind of fortunate that I'm so plugged into the Air Force, because, it's funny. You sit there and they're like, hey, when are you going to get out? We got a job for you. And it's like, okay, cool. And they're like, yeah, even our officers get bonuses. And I'm sitting here like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, for you to stay in and be a JTAC. And it's like, what the crap? And then they also get all the extra pay.
When you came in the Army, was there a bonus? Are there bonuses for forward observers?
So it depends. So let's see here. So when I came in, no. I have soldiers now who have been in the Army. They've been in the Army now just for about almost 2 years. And when they enlisted, they got $40,000 bonuses.
Wow.
I mean, so it depends on the time period. No, that was my elbow.
Yeah.
So I got college money, right? So I got a little more money in my GI Bill. That's what I got, and it equates to like $50,000 or $60,000. I don't remember.
It's a good thing to have. I'm using my GI Bill right now, and I'm sitting there like, I'm counting my months, because it goes by time and everything.
Yeah, 36 months.
Yeah, so it's like how many classes you can cram into that 36 months. So I'm trying to do enough where I can not only get my bachelor's, but go ahead and get my master's completely paid for, hopefully.
From my understanding, and I haven't confirmed this yet, right, because I don't really need to, there is a way to ask the VA to extend you additional schooling.
You can go through, they have a thing called the, what's it called? It's the... It's some kind of like job. It sounds like a job training kind of program, but it's like one of those things. Like if you need follow-on college or whatever training to get whatever the job you're looking for, then you can go through that program. It's kind of like having the GI Bill again, but I don't think you get as much on it. But I'm not 100%. Something about occupational loan. Training. Occupational training or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know. Sure. I was amazed. I was like, wow, okay. But I'm working towards my degree while I'm in. And I'm hoping to be able. It's harder. It's a lot harder. I mean,
Yeah.
It's easy where I'm at here at Fort Sill, because of the fact that I have my schedule's pretty planned out. You know what I mean? I mean, I know 2 years from now what every class that I teach, their dates, right?
Yeah.
I know exactly when it's going to be. So it's a little easier for me to plan it out. But once I go back to ForceCom, and especially if I move over to this job in USASOC that I'm working on, I'm going to be nonstop, and that school is going to get a lot harder, a lot quicker.
For sure.
But we'll see.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I always tell guys. I'm like, one of my biggest regrets, I was in for 12 years, and I didn't start taking classes. I went and signed up a few times, but I was like, oh, shit, I'm going to Iraq. I probably won't have time. I had time. Then I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to Afghanistan. I'm probably not going to have time. Then I had time. And I'm like, fuck. Yep. So my last 2 years, I just cranked out like 30-something credits. But I wish I would have been doing it the entire time, because I could have – then I wouldn't have to worry about if my GI Bill is going to cover a master's, It's already possible. So, yeah, it's super smart to take advantage of the TA. It's free class. I mean, you could take classes in anything, and you can sit there and switch majors all you want and sit there.
As long as you don't spend more than
it's like $6,500 a year or something like that.
It's like $5K a year or whatever. It's like you can take let's see here. Do my math here real quick. It's $1,500. So it's $1,500 per semester for me right now, because I'm taking 2 classes at a time.
Yep.
And I think I can do 4 semesters. So whatever that math, $6,000 or something like that, whatever that math works out to be. But this is the downside. Yeah, you don't pay for books. So pick a school that books are included. Like I do American Military University. All my books are online resources. They're included in the technology feed that's in my tuition.
Yeah.
So it's just.
I use Central Texas College. I think I had to buy my books, but I wasn't too worried about it. And some of them you can find online on PDFs. A lot of people upload and if you're using your GI Bill too, I mean, you get your book stipend. Yeah, you get your book stipend. Even if you go Montgomery, depending on how it was set up, you get your kicker. So there's extra stuff. I'm talking about while I was in. Now I'm using. Now I'm going to SDSU now, and I'm using my GI Bill for that. So
yeah, when I went to university, so when I did University of Phoenix at first. I started that in 2012 when I was in Afghanistan. Like you, I was like, I'm not gonna have time for college, and then my infantry platoon sergeant was like, dude, I'm taking 2 classes right now. You just tell your instructors that you're deployed, and they usually work with you.
Yeah.
And you kind of explain blackouts and stuff like that, like what happens during blackout periods. And I didn't think about that, and so I did my introduction to online learning class while I was deployed. And I actually, my second deployment in 2015 to Jordan, of all places, was harder to do school than Afghanistan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, so they had me on night shift.
Yeah.
In the JOC, and then our Wi-Fi was free, right? So we have free high-speed internet at where we were at. And unfortunately, I can't. It's the typical. I was in Amman, Jordan. That's all we're usually allowed to say. So we're in the JOC, and then you get off, and like, hey, you need a VPN. Well, because there was an Egyptian family who was paying for our internet.
Oh.
Right? So, like, the base had free internet provided by some billionaire in Egypt. But they would when you'd log on, if you didn't use your VPN, like 3 days later, your bank account was empty.
Oh, funny.
So I didn't want to log on to school, using my personal laptop, or if my VPN wasn't working right. So I'd always test it. I'd watch like a Netflix movie first, because my VPN would base me out of America. So I'd be able to get on Netflix, watch a movie, start a movie or something like that. All right, cool, my VPN's working, and then I'd be able to do college. And about halfway through the deployment, we moved to another base where the free internet was the typical Army, MWR quality internet. You're like, AOL dial-up speeds. I'm trying to watch movies and stuff and download like full books and stuff, and it wasn't working.
You need to experience internet on a ship sometime.
I believe that. Yeah,
it is the worst.
Well, I mean, it's got to be like the bandwidth for your in your talk when you're deployed in your CPs.
Oh, way worse, dude.
Really? Is it?
Yeah, way worse. They can throttle the internet, and they can go through by individual person and throttle your internet to a certain amount. So the lower the rank you are, the shittier your internet is, and the smaller the windows. You only give you certain windows where you can get online, and it's just like, dude, it's you'll like click on a photo, and you'll have to sit there and wait a couple minutes for like a photo to load. You're just like, this is ridiculous.
I'm just trying to see my kids.
Yeah, internet on ship is basically the worst. Yeah, so back what we were talking about, I've only heard of one guy I knew that got an enlistment bonus. There's not very many, as a forward observer in the Marine Corps, there's not very many jobs that give you a enlistment bonus in the Marine Corps. However, for forward observers, I think every year that I was doing the job for 0861s, the re-enlistment bonuses were anywhere from like 20 to 90 grand, depending on
all that.
Yeah, depending on if you're a corporal or sergeant, and if it was your first year, I got my third term, I got another bonus. Like they were even giving careerist bonuses. So it's like and the reason is because it's a high tempo job, and you generally move up to go become a JTAC for a while, which is obviously a high stress job, and do just get out after that because you get worked to death for 2 years, and then they're just like, fuck this, like it's not worth it anymore. So a lot of guys get out. So is it kind of the same way in the Army? Is it a high tempo kind of? Are you always in the field or deploying, and then?
So I'll say that also depends on your assignment, right? So like if you're a light, what we call a light fighter, right? So airborne, air assault. So if you're an 82nd Airborne, 173rd, 101st, if you're in a light unit, their op tempo is just nonstop. And that's just because that's the type of unit they are. So we work off of refit cycles, right? So your heavy units or your tanks and your Bradley fighting vehicles and all that are, you tend to see like 18-month to 24-month reset periods, right? So I'll come off a rotation, and especially specifically combat rotations, and you'll come back and you're home for 18 months at least, right? So those FOs tend not to get as worked as hard. The downside to a heavy unit is typically longer field problems because our sustainability rate is a lot higher because I have a truck. I have a tracked vehicle that can carry 10,000 pounds of crap. You know what I mean? So I can put 2 weeks worth of MREs on it. I can put 2 weeks of water on it. Whereas airborne guy, light fighter, is only really going to carry enough water and food for maybe 72 hours. Because he's also got to carry all his radios and that sort of stuff. So it just depends, and also depended on when you were in. So I was actually one of the last deployments for Fort Lewis. They're actually not deploying anymore. Like they've been taken off every patch chart, just because of a few incidents, that occurred specifically out of Fort Lewis, out of the striker brigades there. They've kind of just, hey, we're not good.
Is that what Fort Lewis is? A striker like base?
Yeah. So Fort Lewis is all strikers. It's 2 striker brigades. There's only 2 brigades there. There's a Ranger battalion there. There's a special forces group there. 160th Source of Special Operations Air Regiment. There's a Combat Aviation Brigade there. So there's a big mixture there. But the combat brigades for the ground pounders are strikers. But the 2 current brigades there both had pretty serious incidents in Afghanistan. That kind of I believe made Big Army like, hey, we're just not gonna we're gonna cut ties on this.
Oh, so, really? Like,
yeah, I mean,
incidents like you want to elaborate because I don't know what you're talking about.
So 2012, March 2012, Staff Sergeant Bales went on that shooting spree in Afghanistan, killing 17 people. So he came from actually my brigade. That's actually where that event occurred, was about 500 meters away from the southwest corner of my fob.
Okay. Real quick, before we go any farther, because a lot of my listeners are mostly Marines or Navy background that have worked with Marines. Can you explain like the different, what a brigade is and stuff like that? Because we have, obviously your platoon, your company, battalion, and then regiment, and then division, and that's as high as we go. Yeah.
So brigade would be like your regiment.
Okay.
And then division is division, right? Yeah. I mean, it's, for us, it's the 2-star level commander. And then we go up to corps. So that's the 3-star. Then we go Big Army.
Okay.
And we basically match your lower echelons. So, team, squad, platoon, whether it's company, battery, troop, it just depends on whatever flavor of the day. Because in the Army, we can't ever make up our mind. So like if you're cavalry, or if you're an aviation unit, you're a troop. I don't know why. That's just what they decided. Then for them, it's just like the Air Force. They call them squadrons, right? And you guys do too. Your flying units. Same thing. It's a squadron.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's cav or our flying units. But really, I mean, basically, if you're company or below, it looks the same and it operates the same.
So on your deployment, though, do you deploy? Was that whole striker brigade deployed, or do you deploy like a battalion from it at a time?
So we can do. So they can. What I would say piecemeal, right? And that's a pretty good way to explain it. The army, big army, can absolutely task. So actually a good example that you bringing that up. 2012, our deployment, we actually had two companies from another battalion augment our deployment. So they got attached to our specifically our battalion because our battalion took over a brigade's worth. So a regiment's worth of AO.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it happened with us at 3-6 also.
Yeah. So, and ironically enough, it was actually an armored battalion. They sent two companies out of Fort Stewart to augment into us. So I mean, it's real. It's funny. I just went through a course in November here at Fort Sill, and that was one of the things we talked about. It's actually it's a great course. If any of your listeners are still in. Joint Operational Fire and Effects course here at Fort Sill. Awesome. You get a mix of every branch, right? Yeah. So I had Navy guys, Marine guys, Air Force guys, Army guys. They allow GS civilians. So we actually had a guy from Strategic Command in the class. Yeah. And some people in the class were from the Defense Intelligence Agency. So it was a super cool experience. One of the there was a Marine female aviator major. And she was sitting there just wrapping her head around like how the Army command structure works, It's just, and when you overthink it, it's a beast and a half. And I think that's one of that's what's hard about being in the Army too, is, we support all these different agencies, or we get tied to all these different agencies, and so like Air Force, I don't understand their command structure at all. I mean, it's one of the weirdest things ever, because a wing to them is like your regiment, my brigade, but it can be a 1-star general that's in command of it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just it's weird. And
I never really concerned myself too much with all their stuff, and I know some Army stuff because my dad was in the Army, back, when I was younger and stuff like that. So, but back to what we were talking about, so you had one guy that went on a shooting spree. What did they ever say why? Like what that was all about, or?
So they said PTSD. In all honesty, it sounds from what we heard on the ground versus medical and stuff like that. It sounds like it was just like a PTSD. The dude basically just snapped.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, I think it was like his 6th deployment or some shit like that. I mean, like the dude was like not supposed to be cleared to deploy, but somehow, some way,
6. And you guys do year-long deployments, right?
So we did. We're 9 months.
Okay.
Unless you're special operations. But yeah, so he was on the year deployment side. So I actually deployed that same deployment, but I deployed a couple months after the brigade headquarters, which put me in the 9-month window, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I was there for the same amount of fucking time, but I just was, I left the same time they left, but I just got to be there a little less.
Which is always nice.
So, and he had 2 15-month deployments. So it was like his 6th deployment, and he had gone to behavioral health and was like, look, I don't want to do this. He was, from my understanding, he presented signs of suicide, homicide, and they're just like, go overseas, have fun.
That's crazy.
And then the other event was 2009. So it was 5th Stryker Brigade, now 2nd Stryker Brigade. Basically, killing people they weren't supposed to, and just from
purposely, or like it was like,
yeah,
oh shit,
it was more or less like just fucking like, hey, there's a dude.
Oh really? Fuck.
Yeah, kind of the fucking asshole, like kind of the shit you see on TV and stuff like that. The Hollywood portrays the horrible soldiers, killing innocent people.
Yeah.
So
the shitty thing is that like that's not a common thing, but I bet if you ask like a regular person, they would think that's a common thing, because that's like the few times you hear about the military that we're actually on the news anymore, because no one really cares anymore about the wars, is like one, a war crime. Like look at Eddie Gallagher and his whole case and stuff like that. So a war crime, or someone, gets like the Medal of Honor or something like that. That's
even
about the only time you see. Yeah, and they definitely pay more attention to the war crime side than someone being awarded the Medal of Honor. But yeah, that sucks, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, so in my opinion, and talking to some guys that are still at Fort Lewis, that's basically what they've been told is like, hey, we're just not allowed to deploy. also, so they fall under First Corps, which is the corps aligned to like the Pacific.
Yeah.
So I think that part of that too plays a role with just everything going on with China. Striker brigades are very quickly deployed. There's C-130 loadable. There's a heavy lift wing from the Air Force right next to Fort Lewis. So they've got C-17s right there. So I think part of it is, global response. They don't want to have a unit like that that's out in Afghanistan or whatever and something happen, and then them not be able to, because these are the guys that'll help reinforce Korea. These are the guys that'll help reinforce Hawaii, places like that, or anywhere in like the Indo-PACOM area of operation.
And plus now, I mean, we got this peace deal going on with the Taliban. It sounds like it's
man.
Sounds like that's fully over with, which is pretty.
I can't
wild.
I can't wait to go back to Afghanistan and fight alongside a Taliban fighter, against ISIS.
Man, I don't know. Yeah, they don't get along.
We already do that with ANA, so I don't. That's whatever.
It's it's pretty weird. It's weird that the New York Times had an op-ed last week. They let Haqqani from the Haqqani Network.
Yeah, I know who you're talking. Yeah,
write a piece about it, and I'm like, what the fuck, like how would you? How are you even going to give this person? I'm all about free speech and like extolling, like like people should have a voice and stuff like that. But I don't think like a dude like that's voice should be in the New York Times. Like his voice he's got a voice because he has access to the internet. He doesn't need I don't know, man. I thought that was fucked up that they
article.
Yeah, and it's like you're going to give this guy an opportunity to try to justify their way of life or their way of thinking, which is a super oppressive,
Kill everyone.
Like no education, no formal education. It's all madrasas and stuff like that.
Yep.
Back to women are all veiled all the time.
Yep.
And it's just crazy. And then the New York Times would even give someone like that a platform.
Well, and we see it in today's society anyways, man. It's you look at Sweden, you look at, London, you look at, where they're protecting more of the Middle Eastern people than their own citizens, and I'm absolutely all about, move away from oppression. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Like if you have no intention of trying to make America change its ways, by all means, come hang out, right? We're a great country to live in. I mean, we get guns. It's awesome. And it's
assimilation is part of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I sit there, and one of the biggest classes that I fail in college is actually political science. I just can't fit. I have yet to finish the class, and I avoid it at all costs.
Really?
Yeah, because from what I've found is, so now that I've changed to the American Military University, I haven't redone the class yet. I'm going to. It's actually, I think, 2 semesters from now. But I was going to a university that just seemed so far liberal that if I even remotely spoke anything about, hey, I think this is good that we're doing, I just got attacked, right? I mean, instantly, and it to the point where I'd hit like week 3 and I'd drop out because I couldn't figure out a way to, with being respectful, respond to some of the comments, that I was being disrespected at. And so I just, I had a teacher one time, I made a comment back, and I had a teacher actually go out of their way to message me privately and say, hey, I don't appreciate the way you're talking to that student. Please refrain it. And I copy pasted the message from the student to me. I was like, I responded the exact same way, and it's, so I'm actually excited to retry it here. A lot of the professors and other students that I've interacted with so far have been awesome. There's obviously both sides of the political spectrum. And one of the biggest things is guns. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems we have in the debates these days is gun control. And one of my classes was criminal justice, and I wrote a couple articles on the Second Amendment. So, but yeah, no, I agree with you. It's definitely a crazy world we live in.
I definitely temper my speech at school. Like I don't respond. I mean, I go to San Diego State University
especially in
Southern
Cali.
California. We're right here by the border, so it's a liberal school right by the border. So you got all the immigration, that whole movement here, and it's a super diverse school. It's probably one of the most diverse schools in the country, I would bet.
It's probably really exciting though for you too.
Oh, it's cool. No, I like it. I'm not against the diversity and stuff like that. I'm totally cool with it. But however, there are some professors that they're like a super liberal and they don't really hide it, Yep. And I don't even try to question some of the stuff they say, even though sometimes I'm sitting here like, are you fucking kidding me? Or I'll know that they're taking something out of context because I'm a news nerd, man. I'm on the news all day. I'm on I have TweetDeck, which is like Twitter, like for crackheads. It's like yeah, it's all this stuff, and I'm on the news all day, so I'm reading this stuff, and I'm hearing them tell an out of context story or something like that. Yeah. And I don't really say anything because I'm like, how is this going to affect? Because I'm in a journalism and advertising major, so
yeah,
a lot of the classes I take, the work is subjective. It's not math or science where there's a right answer. It's like, hey, write this paper, describe this, or do that, and it's very subjective. So I'm not trying to like throw myself out there to get highly criticized because of my, point of view. So I let a lot of stuff slide, but I know what you're saying. It's, some of the students are cool. Some of them aren't. You just have to, I've always just been, don't be a douchebag, don't be some weird, like super pro Second Amendment, like, oh, like I got to yell about it and wear the cool, Second Amendment shirt. Like, don't be aggressive. Just like you don't for me, like a super liberal person, most of them are cool as long as they're not like super aggressive. Like when they're in your face about it, you're like, dude, get away from me. Like you're a douchebag. And that's just, I could see that being the same way with like super right-wing people.
And it is. I mean, and it's funny because everybody, super righties and super lefties are like, oh, F you. And it's like, dude, you're the same people. You're the exact same. Like, shut up. You both suck.
What's funny is that I have different views, and I've been accused of being like a left-wing shill and like stuff. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like on my Facebook page and stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. It's just, it's a weird world. And it's, going to school is great. And getting exposure to different things is great. And like I said, I'm not against like the whole diversity and stuff like that. I'm all about it. It's just when I see mistruths being spoken by a professor that's supposed to be teaching, straight to students, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, teaching their opinion versus like the topic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is what it is, though. But anyway, back to the Army.
Everything. Yeah.
So you went to Fort Sill for your MOS school. How was the training? How long is the training for a forward observer, or what's like what should I call you, a forward observer or what?
So 13 Foxes. So we call ourselves fisters. That's just what we call ourselves.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. So fire supporter. There's actually a very un-PC thing. There's a couple, hide your sister, here comes a fister, elbows deep, stuff like that. Right. And so back when I went through AIT, it was 5.5 weeks. Right. It was super short, super simple. Because really everything was on the unit, right? Everything. I mean, the basics of, degraded, what we call degraded now, which is map and compass, call for fire, is what I learned. That's what we did. Yeah. Now has morphed into just this ginormous, it's 10.5 weeks. And if you ask me, some of it's bullshit. It needs to be cut the fuck out. Because it really should fall on the unit again, right? Like I get it. Like we have a manual, TC 3-09.8. It's our gunnery manual specifically for artillery, right? So it covers all the artillery MOSs. Yeah. Chapter 1 and 2 are all inclusive, non-MOS specific. And then we have our own chapter 6. I'm very plugged into helping rewrite that. And there's tasks in there that like radios, right? Every 13 Fox should be taught which you guys would call the 119. We call it an ASIP, right? It's just a normal SyncGARS radio. Yeah. Just FM comms. Absolutely should be taught that, but we teach them like 117 Golfs and 148s. But now it's 10.5 weeks and we just do all this extra bullshit, and it's just so long. I mean, I've got soldiers that work for me who graduated AIT about 18 months ago. And the shit they did in AIT is just like, what? They do 2 different graded live fire events. They do a bunch of simulated, graded simulated events. At one point they had JFO in AIT, which they got rid of because it's the dumbest idea ever.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Skill level guys for us, right, which is what AIT is, are not ready for that mindset yet.
No way. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And so one, it wasn't a graduation requirement. Well, it was and it wasn't. It's kind of a gray area. Like the 1-star general in charge of the Field Artillery School was like, it's a requirement, but like it really wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's just that gray area. But you get these guys who, it was 10.5 weeks long, and it's like, what did you learn? And it's like this, and this. It's like, great, I learned that in 5.5 weeks. Like, but I got rid of the bullshit. We didn't do what we call tech, what they do called tech now. So we didn't do like the lightweight laser designator rangefinder, right?
Okay.
Because that's unit level. I mean, they taught that at the unit.
Yeah.
We didn't do the digital stuff. That's unit crap.
Yeah.
But all that stuff now is in AIT, so it just adds to all these different lengthy events. We even had a 4-day field problem in there, right? They cut that out here, and it's still 10.5 weeks.
Huh.
It's just like, what the fuck, like.
That is a pretty long. That's like as long as ours is, and we also teach naval gunfire. Like we do the 6 weeks of artillery and then 4 weeks of naval gunfire.
Yeah, see, we don't. Yeah, not at all. We don't touch that at all. And I think that's part of the problem of our community is that we're so task saturated. I mean, I could email you the tasks. I mean, it's stupid long. Right. I mean, we break it down by position too, RTO, FO, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous the amount of stuff that we expect these skill level 1 soldiers to come out of AIT knowing when they're going to get to their unit who can teach it. Right. So save the Army some money, cut some shit out.
Yeah. I mean, I agree to a point. I think you could probably shorten it for sure. But you definitely got to have like a nice baseline for everybody to be on. That way, like you've at least all heard the baseline information. We're all kind of on the same page, and then your unit can get down into their own SOPs. You know, because our guys leave Fort Sill as well, not knowing anything. Like they show up. I mean, they were taught everything, but it's hard. I think it's hard for people to think about like, okay, I've been in for 10 years. I'm now an instructor at Fort Sill, and I'm looking at a kid who 6 months ago was smoking weed back with his buddies, not even in the military. And now I'm throwing jargon at him like he should understand it. And we don't understand why they're not, retaining it. And it's like, I mean, they need reps, and that's what you get at the unit. Yeah, it's exactly. You come to the unit, get the reps, and I think we did like, you'd have to be in the fleet for a year before they would send you to JFO. I think that's how we were running it. I don't know what they do now, but
and it was probably. So I think that like the officers, I think for you guys go to JFO pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think they might be doing it in MOS school now. I think the officers are, which is a bad idea.
Yeah, that's what we were doing too, right? So our BOLIC, our basic officer leader course, which is where we create our 13 Alpha, the field artillery officer, they were doing the same thing. They also got rid of it, right? But it's like, I think that one, it could definitely be shortened, but two, like there's some stuff that could get cut out. So in our task for skill level 1, the radio specifically, it says per unit MTO, right? So what are you authorized? Well, 117 Golf is not an Army program record. So
really?
Technically, no unit is authorized it.
Huh.
Right, technically. However, units can order it because you can do purchase orders through the division command level, right? So you can spend the money, get the radios. But bar Army MTO, because it's not a program of record, you're not going to have it. What we get is the 117 Fox, right?
Yeah.
Which you guys have as well. The 148 garbage ass radio. But almost every unit's MTO'd that.
Everybody uses those. SOCOM is real big. Marine Corps doesn't really use them unless you're recon or like MARSOC and stuff, just because of their
you guys had the
underwater capabilities.
Yeah, the maritime.
Yeah, maritime.
We run. I've got.
Well, there's a new one. There's a new 152 out now that's maritime, so I think they're probably switching to that as well.
Yeah. So the Air Force has cut their contract with Thales. Army is cutting their contract with Thales to a degree. So the 148 specifically for the Army and the Air Force will no longer be supported. But there's a new 148 that's coming out. It's called a 148 Charlie. It's actually a dual channel 148, so it's 2 embedder radios in one.
Huh.
I actually have a 117 Golf version sitting over here behind me. That's 2 radios, 1 box. So we're moving towards better capabilities, but I don't think that's where like skill level 1 should be like introduced. Hey, this is the radio, and then you go to your unit, get your sets and reps, right? Like let the unit train their specific equipment. And I think that's where we're failing, because let's say you were to come through 13 Fox AIT, you're going to learn about our new precision fire dismounted device, right? It's our new digital toy. But not every Army unit has it right now.
Yeah.
So, do a FAM class real quick, like slap in the face, 60 slider. Hey, this is what it is. Play with it for a couple seconds, play with it for a day and be done with it. But yeah, and I definitely think that one of the biggest things that the Army messed up too is what they call us Joint Fire Support Specialists now. That's actually our new title. But nothing about the Army. We brief joint well, but we execute joint terribly. Right.
That's everybody, I think.
That's a bit. I mean, you guys probably do it better than us because you have your own organic air assets, right? So you guys joint fires to you is almost inherent in nature. You know, and so I definitely think that's where we fall short. Is we don't focus on integration, we focus on a lot of other stupid stuff.
Yeah, I worked with some Army guys out in Kuwait at OP10. What's that camp? Camp Buehring. Yeah, out there in the range, OP10. I remember coming out and there were some Army observers out there and they were shooting HIMARS, which is one of the cool things you can do out there. Yeah. And we had guys shooting mortars and stuff like that. And I remember coming up on the tower and I was like, hey, we got a section of this coming up and a section of rotors coming in. And the kid was like, oh, okay, hey, I'll just tell him to stop shooting. And I'm like, fuck that. Let's do a SEAD with HIMARS, man. And this dude, this like Army kid, you know, I think everyone else like got off the tower. There was like the E3 they left to do radio watch. I was like, let's do a SEAD, man. We'll call in the HIMARS. I'll set up the Apaches when they come in because that's who we were working with. Yep. He's like, oh, we can do that. Like he was like super excited. Yep. I'm like, dude, that's the way to do it, man. That's the only way to do it.
So it's actually, it's funny you bring that up, right? So the newest J-Fire that just came out is the first J-Fire that got rid of USMC only next to the SEAD. Right? Every other version, I mean, I've got a 2016 version sitting on the shelf over here. It says in the SEAD mission, it says USMC only. So the Army was like, nope, it's USMC only. That's it. But it was a misprint, right? The SEAD that you know has been in the joint pubs since like 2014. I mean, it was put in the joint pub 3-09.3 and I know the 2014 version had it in it. And I imagine probably the 2012 version had it in as well.
Isn't that pub? I was looking over my bookshelf to see if I have one. I gave all mine away though right before I got out. Isn't that the man? I'm not. You know what? I'm not even going to try to talk about the pubs because it's been 2 years and I'll just sound like an idiot.
Well, here's the J-Fire. I know the J-Fire. Same as always, right? You know, but
so you guys did SEAD though, right? Your FOs like do SEAD call for fire?
We did no, absolutely not. We did the most Army stupid thing ever, which was 2 separate fire missions, one for the mark, one for the artillery, or one for the suppression. Right? The stupidest thing ever. And I'm like, hey, there's and I'd sit there as an FO and I'm like, hey, read the J-Fire. There's a mission. It says USMC only. But can we not do this? Well, no, we don't know it. So let's learn it. Let's learn it.
It looks efficient. Why not utilize that?
Yeah.
So for the people that are listening, we're talking about SEAD. It's the suppression of enemy air defense. So it's when you have artillery firing on an anti-air defense asset, like an enemy, like whatever is trying to shoot down a helicopter. You're shooting at that while your aircraft is coming in to attack a separate target, and your SEAD
or
can
the
have
same.
or the same target or whatever. So that's just what it is. It's basically protecting your aircraft so that they can come in and destroy whatever their target is. Yep. So catch everybody up to speed on that. So that's weird that you guys never even like. I didn't know that. I thought that was something the guys knew, but you just never really did that much.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. I know I've got one running around in here somewhere. I'm actually still in my office right now.
I noticed that. I was like, he's either in the barracks with some shitty shelving back there, or he's still at work.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I had our manual, and I think I left it at one of my other offices. But there's no mention of SEAD, right? And this is the 13 Fox Observe Fire Manual, right? So it's our Bible that the Army Observer runs off of, and I don't think there's even a mention of SEAD in there.
That's weird. So as a forward observer, you're part of a FIST. You know, you're a FISTer. I assume you have an Air Force JTAC or one of their dudes ROMADs attached to you.
So in the ideal world, absolutely, right? So the way it actually works, because of manning, the Air Force really only gives us a TAC-P team for like the battalion level. So you'll get what's called instead of an ALO, you'll get a BLO. Right, so an ALO, Air Liaison Officer. BLO is a battalion, basically a battalion Air Liaison Officer, right? Typically like a senior enlisted TAC-P, probably current JTAC, something like that. Typically like a tech sergeant, master sergeant, somewhere in the E6, E7 range.
Okay.
And it's just because they were short ALOs, right? So, and there's a huge change in the Air Force community. ALOs is now actually a career field. It is now an actual position, whereas before it was like an A-10 pilot who would get pulled off to do ALO duty. Right.
So what's a ALO then? What is that? Is that like a JTAC?
Yeah, so they can be a JTAC, right? So they're a TAC P, but they're a TAC P officer,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So now it's the 13 Lima career field for them. They'll start off as a second lieutenant, and that's now their career field. They'll stay as an ALO their entire career, which is great because you'll get guys who start at the lowest level of knowledge and build exponentially. I personally like the pilots, right? The actual patched rated pilots. Because those dudes now they know the ground fight decently because they're a pilot, right? And especially A-10 pilots. Those dudes are just crazy. And then then they now come in and they'll sit in your top, in your command post, and they'll be like, "Hey, sir, this is why you should use CAS." And they could spit everything out about a platform and a weapon and whatever.
Yeah. They understand what's going on in the cockpit and stuff.
Oh yeah, and for us, we'll get that. So it's a team of like 4 to 5 people really, and there's probably 2 qualified JTACs on the team, and the rest of them are probably either not current and qualified, or they just haven't gone to JTAC QC yet. So they'll play like the RTO ROMAD role, driver, whatever you want to call it.
So you're talking about per battalion. So you're getting 2 JTACs per battalion, and plus their little group of like support dudes, like radio operators and drivers and shit like that.
And that's it. And they'll cover all 3 to 4 companies.
Fuck, dude, we thought we were going out shorthanded when we have 1 JTAC per company per battalion, and normally within the team when the team gets attached to the battalion, so no one stays at the infantry all the time. We're always an attachment for coming up deployments. The air officer will show up earlier than everyone else and kind of build it up, and so he's always a pilot. So we always have a pilot. And normally you have like 3, a lot of times you have like 3 pilots. So, and then it'll be different platforms. So they'll talk to you about shooting, like my air officer when I was a 3.6, I was a forward observer. I wasn't a JTAC then, but the air officer, Tiger, he's a Huey guy. Oh, I think I lost you. I think I lost you.
Are we good now?
Yeah. Yeah, and if it happens, you don't have to stop recording.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just making sure. Being in the Army, we don't get the best internet. So there's a contractor that I work with who has an internet, and sometimes his connection goes in and out because it's microwave based.
Oh.
It's like 100 megabits per second, so it's awesome internet, and his tower's like direct line of sight, but it's kind of windy here today. So
that's so weird.
I have like my mobile hotspot as my backup.
Yeah, but hold on a second.
You're good.
Something's going on with my microphone where it's like cutting out one side of the speech for some reason. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, yeah, what I was saying is that when our group attaches to the battalion, you have the air officer who's a pilot. Generally, you have at least two more pilots come in, and then all your enlisted like E5, E6 JTAC dudes that come in and fill it out. So you have quite a few, and then you have a joint fires observer with every company, at least one, and then your artillery. Yeah, so it's kind of most people on our side, we are always confused when we see the Air Force TACPs because we see you guys your Army, but you guys do it too. But everyone wears a fucking patch for whatever their job is.
Oh my god!
And you see ALO, you see TACP, you see CCT, and these guys. A lot of dudes have no idea, and including me. I mean, I know what the difference between a CCT and a JTAC is, but I don't know what like I said, an ALO. I wouldn't have. So that sounds to me like you said they're not necessarily pilots.
Not anymore. No, they used to be pilots, right? That was basically everyone was a pilot. So the air liaison officer is now a TAC P officer. That's going to be the officer you see wearing a TAC P patch on their left arm.
Yeah.
And that's actually, and it's weird. It's a weird thing to me, because like to me, I would assume that any JTAC would be able to perform that liaison ability because me as a 13 Fox and you as an FO, that you liaisoned. Right, everything we do about our jobs is a liaison.
Yeah, but the thing about that is that those are the guys. I see those are the guys. So our officers that are pilots are called FACs. So he's a FAC. He's a forward air controller. But if you're an artillery officer and you become a JTAC, you're just a JTAC, like I was as a staff sergeant. And honestly, our ground dudes usually do a really good job, especially usually our ground dudes they're really good at executing. Like they're really good at going out, target location, doing the 9 line, doing all that. They're really good at that part. And the pilot side are always better at planning because that's just kind of the background
that's
they come from.
Yeah.
And then if you have a shooter pilot, like if your FAC is a like Harrier guy or F-35 guy now, or like a Cobra guy or one of those guys, then they know both sides of the radio now, so they get it. They know what's going. Like you were talking about, they know what's going on in the cockpit. They know, okay, he's doing this. He's in the turn. This is what's happening. Yeah. So they're really good about that. And then you have your like transport guys, your C-130 pilots and stuff like that become FACs, and it's tough for them because they don't have a fire support background, nor do they have like a fighter pilot kind of background.
Yeah, they don't know what's going on.
So everything's fucking new for them. So it's usually pretty hard for your like 53 CH-53 guys and stuff like that. But,
for us, like so for us, the ALO. So now the ALO is a career field. I mean, realistically, they go through like the TACP schoolhouse. So I mean, they'll be at the schoolhouse alongside an enlisted guy. Yeah. Right. I mean, they go all through the same school, which I think the Army could do a lot better of, and I think that could be a mirror that the Army should do. Is definitely integrate some of the enlisted and the officer training. But there's a whole bunch of red tape with that. But these guys will come out. I mean, when I went to JTAC QC, there was, I'd say about 10 students in the class were all ALOs at some level, whether it was second lieutenants, first lieutenants, captains. I think there was a major in the class too. So. But these guys all came up to be ALOs. That's all they do. And it's then you meet the guys that are pilots. And personally, I prefer the pilots, because they had that air picture. They're probably a FAC A, so they understand the JTAC lingo, but they also understand the weapons. They can sell a commander at, hey, why can I put a GBU 54 version 4 in this building and not kill anyone that I'm not supposed to? And they can explain the weaponeering and everything like that behind it. Whereas the guys that you're getting now, they don't have that picture. They don't have that weapon school training.
And the threats and everything else.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, as a JTAC, and as we know threats, right? Absolutely. The second we can, we're going to get in the red side of the house, look up the red side, the secret level stuff. But those dudes know so much more stuff, even beyond what you and I could fathom, about those especially not even just threats, but like their aircraft capabilities.
Yeah.
I can flip my J-Fire open to, page, I think it's 119. It'll tell me how fast an A-10 flies, but this dude's like, hey, I could do this though, so
they're all, they're all worried about survivability.
Yep, exactly. They'll tell me like, hey, absolutely. I can make a crazy ass heading at a very narrow turn. They'll tell you all that stuff. Whereas the ALOs now don't understand to that level.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So.
No, it's interesting that, like I said, that was always super confusing because we're like, so who does the controlling? When we would see them walking around or work with them. I only worked with them a handful of times. I worked with some guys, like I said, out in Kuwait. We worked with some JTACs out there and some of the Army Fort observers and artillery dudes. Yeah. And then Gila Bend, we'd go out to Gila Bend. And work with the Air Force guys out there and stuff like that. I've never, like you mentioned, it's kind of rare for an Army guy that's outside of the SOCOM community to become a JTAC. So what led you to that path? Like, how did that happen for you?
Kind of luck of the draw, honestly. So I PCS'd here in January 2018. Got out here and basically got an invite to go do some casts, right? And the guy that invited me was one of the AIT instructors. He's like, hey man, I'm going out to the range. You want to do some casts? I was like, absolutely. Like, I'm not going to turn down a training opportunity, especially with live air.
Yeah.
And it happens to be Marine Corps F-18s based out of Fort Worth. So I go out there, right, and I meet this guy who's a British lieutenant colonel, right? So an 05, and he's a British Army JTAC, right? But he's Marine Corps trained, so he went to EGW PAC, right? And so that's where he got his JTAC training, and that's where he started his whole adventure off of. And him and I started talking, and I'd probably say after a couple weeks of working together, just basically he would text me, hey, you want to go to the range? Absolutely, let's go. He kind of just like, hey man, you want to be a JTAC? I was like, absolutely.
Fuck
right.
Yeah.
So right. I was like, duh. I actually worked with with Denny a lot, with Robbie. Him and I would like get together and he would go out a ton because the British guy was a Marine Corps JTAC trained. So his O6 over here at the Mardet would basically just anything this dude said, he would just sign it off, right?
That's
I mean,
cool.
that's just so it benefited Denny a lot. So we'd go out and he basically pulled a bro card to get me a slot as fast as he did. And then that's pretty much it. Everybody was like, "Oh, you can't be qualified, you can't do this, you can't do that." And there's a memorandum of agreement that dates back to the early dates of the JFO course when it was first established, back when the Air Force didn't have enough JTACs. So they weren't sending dudes to be instructors at the JFO course because they couldn't fill the need of the force, right? So PTAC wasn't a thing. These previously qualified terminal TAC controllers, that wasn't a thing yet. Because there wasn't enough to have that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Air Force and big Air Force at the ACC level, the Air Combat Command level, and TRADOC, which is the Training and Doctrine Command for the Army. They came up with a memorandum agreement that basically said, hey, you're authorized X number of Army JTACs to augment the Air Force. That way the Air Force didn't now have this incredibly high demand of having to provide people to the JFO course here at Fort Sill. The Army guys could augment it, which is awesome. And so the memorandum still exists today. And so that's what I fall under. That's why I fall under the 6th CTS out of Nellis Air Force Base, their program.
Is that where you went to TCP school, or is that what you guys call it? TCP school?
No, they call it JTAC QC.
Okay.
That's what they call it. You guys call it TACP. It's the same freaking thing. It's the stupidest thing ever. You've got TACP school for you guys. You've got SOTAC, which is owned by SOCOM. You've got JTAC QC. It's just like, call it one thing. I mean, why are we calling it so many different things?
Well, the thing about SOTAC is if you go and become SOTAC qualified, in the Marine Corps, if you go to MARSOC as a JTAC, you're only going over there for 5 years. That's generally like the length you're going over there for, and then you're coming back. And sometimes they will take an 0861, and this, I don't know if they still do, but I know this happened before when they were, kind of plussing it up, still trying to build it up. They would take straight, like not brand new, but junior forward observers. They'd go over there and just be a forward observer at the unit for a little bit of time until they made the rank, and then they'd send them to SOTAC. But if you go to SOTAC and then you come back to the fleet, you're no longer a JTAC. The Marine Corps does not recognize that SOTAC qualification. You have to go back through the TACP school at either EWTG PAC or EWTG LANT to continue controlling in the fleet.
That's funny because it's the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean they're all accredited by the JTAC MOA.
Yeah, I think the thing with SOTAC is that there's something, I want to say you don't drop as many live ordnance or something like that. I don't know. I've never been now. So
they changed it now. So at one point it used to be shorter, right? Because the turnaround requirement was a lot higher.
Yeah.
But I mean so JTAC QC is 34 total trip start to finish for me was 34 days. About 30 of that was actual JTAC QC. Then you had your travel days in there and stuff like that. And there's 5 days of drops. So we have 5 live days for us at JTAC QC. You're going to get, you have to do 3 different full mission profiles, CMP 1, 2, and 3. It involves, type 1, type 2, type 3 controls. It involves bomb on coordinate, bomb on target, IR pointer, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, you're checking
the typical,
all the boxes.
the typical initial qualification, right? Everything you need to do to be initially qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I think SOTAC was a little bit shorter. Don't quote me on it. From what my understanding was SOTAC was slightly shorter. They didn't get all the controls that you needed. So a lot of times they didn't SOCOM can get air. It's not hard for SOCOM to get air. I mean, they're SOCOM.
They got all the air.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now with all the contract casts that's floating around, I mean, it's just getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think now it's a lot different. I don't know how the Marine Corps works it still. There's actually a former MARSOC JTAC here at Fort Sill that's a PTAC now, a contract instructor for the JFO course. So he's awesome. So it's kind of funny that you talk about the MARSOC community, because I know, like, the dude and I always talk about MARSOC, and how different it is being there versus the fleet, and just how, because for me to use SOC as support, is nowhere near what you guys have to do to go to MARSOC to be, even, you're not even being special operators. You're just basically being a JTAC support for those special operators, which is realistically the same thing I do. But you guys have a full blown selection process. My stuff is just a paperboard, right? They just look at my file and like, hey, this is who we want.
Yeah, I mean, there is a selection process and I'm actually trying to get one of my buddies to come on. He recently left MARSOC, but I was looking to try to get him to come on and talk about the process. I hate to call it a selection process because those dudes will even cringe of me saying it like that, because it's just like there's shooting packages they go through. There's like the physical training and stuff like that. But I want to say that they're, the thing that they do is the same thing that all the support guys that are going to be directly supporting teams, they all go through that. So it's not like I don't know. I'm kind of curious now. Actually, it makes me wonder how many people drop or don't make it through it. I mean, I feel like I've known guys that went and they were good JTACs, but I think it was personality, because you still have to sit down in front of a board and they look your book over and they talk to you, and then they're like, you know what, you're cool. You're obviously a good JTAC, but you're just not going to fit the personality. Like, it's going to be button heads with dudes on the team. You're
not a bro.
It's some of that. Sometimes you're too bro, and they don't want you to be. They want you to just fucking show up, don't say anything, do your job. It's one of those things like show up and do your job and prove your worth, and then you will give you a little respect, on the back.
It's actually funny. Part of the reason why, when I was at Fort Carson, I worked with 10th Special Forces Group a lot for JFO training, right? Because they've got JTACs. We have a requirement to do remote observers. I had JFOs. Why the hell not? You know what I mean? Get my guys training. And it was funny. One of the guys looked at me that was there, and he's like, "Dude, you'd fit in perfectly here. You're a total bro." And it's just, you sit there, and it's like, okay, like, still in the Army, man. So you got this E8 who's like, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm so and so," and it's like, all right, Sergeant. Like, I don't, no, don't call me that here. And it's, and then, so you sit there and you hear from all these, these sergeants majors for us, and it's like, oh, going to use SOC's going to ruin your career because you're going to come out not knowing the Army standard. And it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Then you talk to guys who have come out of MARSOC, support guys, right? 0861s, and it's like, and they're like, oh yeah, no, they're still gunny, they're still this, they're still that, and it's like, with us, it's like, okay, because it's first name basis.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more like that when you get down to the actual team and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but obviously I'm not going to walk up to a sergeant's major or a lieutenant colonel or a colonel and be like, "What's up, dude?"
Yeah.
But it's the guy here, we talked about it last week. He said that one time he was running the selection, screening, whatever you want to call it. And 3 guys were coming through, and only one of them made it to the sim building, and he was only in the sim building for 10 minutes. And then he was done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just like, yeah, he racked and stacked the jets all at the same block. In the same hold.
Oh,
and I was like, yeah, that'll do it. And so, so he's, a lot of the times he said what failed guys was just nerves.
Yeah, because
nerves.
Well, because when you go to do the screener, you don't know what to expect because dudes don't really tell you too much about it, and you just know you're gonna go. You're gonna go do a board, and they're gonna sit down. And, like I said, they're gonna go through all your stuff. And then you're going to go through the sim, and they're going to bring in multiple people and put a ton of pressure on you.
Yep.
And you really don't know the scenario, and they kind of, I don't know. It's weird. I went through that screener. I went to that screener, and during that whole process part is when I got orders to the MEU. I got screwed and got sent on ship instead.
Oh.
While I was going through that. So I got to do that initial part of it, and it's stressful. You're like, fuck, I'm in this room. There's 5 of them, or however many of them behind you. And they're all from MARSOC. They're all JTACs, and they're all going to come in and act like aircraft and whatever, play the parts of the aircraft, stuff like that.
Yep.
But, everyone's judging you. It's all the pressure's on you. So it's definitely a stressful thing. You need to prepare for it. So,
yeah. Well, that's what it was like going through JTAC QC for me, right? Because I was an Army dude, right? I'm in an Air Force heavy school. There's only 4 Army guys total in the class, right? 3 of them from special operations, and then me, right? So it's you're sitting there and it's badge protecting out the rear end. It's just, everyone's looking for you to do something wrong.
Oh, really?
And it's just, and I don't think it's personal, right? I think it's more of this is our place. This is ours. Because one of the biggest things about Army Air Force relations, I think that we suck at is the JTAC JFO 13 Fox integration. right? I mean, we're basically the same thing. One of us just gets to, the difference to me is one of them gets to say cleared hot, the other one doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But we're basically the same thing. We're basically, we're here for each other. A JTAC is only realistically as good as his cast team.
Mm-hmm.
So why not plug in? Why not go out and get drinks? Why not go TDY together? Why not, do all that stuff? And I think that's one of the biggest failures as a 13 Fox and Fire's integration is that, we don't mesh. For whatever reason, we don't try and integrate with each other. Outside of work, why aren't the JTACs and the JFOs and the Fisters going and getting beers and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like, as stupid as it is, getting beers is like a great way.
We just put the entire team together on the hill for 3 weeks, and then that's how you become best friends.
And we're starting to do that, right? Like, my buddy and my buddy runs the fire support master gunner school here, basically teaching senior 13 Foxes how to run certifications. And that's one of the biggest things we harp on is JFO JTAC integration. It's not just like, hey, when a cast platform's there, you integrate. It's like, hey, outside of that, go hang out. Like,
yeah, you're all supposed to be supporting each other, so you might as well It's supposed to be a team,
Well, so like you guys, right? And from my understanding, right, your guys' fist is a lot different than how we run. A fist for us is, a staff sergeant, so E6, a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, something like that, as your company FSO. And if you're an infantry platoon, you have 3 platoon FOs and then 3 RTOs. Our infantry company teams are 10 people, 10 to 11 people. So massive teams.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that.
Yeah, but your every platoon FO is supposed to be a JFO, right? So while we might only have 2 JTACs, right, we've got a crap ton of JFOs out there floating around. Your company guys, your staff sergeant, your lieutenant are definitely going to be JFOs.
The thing about JFOs though, at least in the Marine Corps, is they're only as good as their JTACs make them, because JFO school is just like going to any other school. You go through it and you walk away with like a very broad stroke knowledge of it, but you don't really fully understand it. And if that's all you've got, like if you never get trained again, you're going to be worthless, like overseas. Like it's going to be a shit show.
Personally, I think your guys' JFO school is a lot better than ours. Personally,
I don't know.
I've sat in a couple of your guys' sims, and I mean, personally, right, I believe that your course is a lot better. But you guys are also creating – your pipeline is to become a JTAC, right? As an 0861 in Marine Corps, because you can have organic JTACs, your pipeline is going to create a JTAC. So your JFOs, from what I've seen coming out of your school, are a lot higher trained than ours.
Well, so the way it works for the Marine Corps is – excuse me. The way it works for the Marine Corps is you become a forward observer, you're in the fleet for like a year or whatever, and then they send you to JFO. And then, you go to the primer course. If you pass the primer course, and they send you to the actual schoolhouse. And then once you have that done, you come back, you're a JFO. You're generally like one of the more senior FOs in your unit now, or in your in the headquarters battery.
Yep.
And then from there, you're just kind of hanging out until you're a sergeant. And then once you hit sergeant, you either go and become a JTAC, like they screen you at sergeant, and you either go to TCP school and become a JTAC, or you stay in the battery and become a fires chief. And you're like doing the, all the approval process and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And some guys don't want to be JTAC. Some guys look at it and they're like, hey man, fuck that. Like that's a lot of work. Like dudes are never home. It looks glamorous until you're doing it. I mean, it is cool. It's a great job, but it's like, it's definitely, it'll work you. Oh, yeah. And so some guys are like, fuck that. Like, they don't even want to go to TSP school. So those guys become fires chiefs. And that's where in the Marine Corps, we've tried to, for years, they've been talking about it, trying to split it. That once you become a JTAC, you get your own MOS, because what you do, it's a secondary one though. It's not a primary. We want to make it a primary MOS, because you go and you become a JTAC for 3 years, and then you come back. They want you to come back to the artillery world and become a fires chief again. And now you're like a gunny, and you're like, you can do it, but it's like, why did you just waste, how over $1 million over 3 years for sure, training you and keeping you up to date and stuff like that. and you just kind of flush it after 3 years. But yeah, we work towards the JTAC. Like, you want guys to eventually go that way. That's not necessarily the direction you're working towards, but it's just a natural progression. But not everybody gets that opportunity. But when I left the Marines, in 2009, so I left in 2018, but in 2009, that's when they first started letting sergeants go to TCP school in the Marine Corps because we were so shorthanded.
Oh yeah, no, and that's actually what the Marshak guy and I were talking about last week too.
Yeah, I'll have to get his name when we're done. I might know him. So yeah, and then sergeants could start going to TCP school, and then it just kind of went from there. But yeah, we pushed towards it, but I don't know. I like our GFOs are like, we send them to school, but a lot of the guys can do the call for fire and stuff like that. Especially like when I was at Anglico, you can all the GFOs there can control air. Most of them can control pretty well before they even go to school because it's just you get air all the time there. It's just one of those things. Yeah. So
that's and like for us, JFOs are not like they're never unless they go to USASOC, they're never going to be JTACs ever, right?
Oh, really?
They won't be. I mean, unless they're in Special Operations Command, whether it's Rangers, whether it's one of the Special Forces groups, right? They're never going to be a JTAC. It's just we don't have a program. We don't have the justification. Whereas in Special Operations Command, the reason why they get it there is because just the mission sets, right? There's not enough CCTs, JTACs in the Air Force to cover down on all those teams and all that stuff. Ranger Battalion, pretty much every platoon, FO, or senior company guy is a JTAC. Yeah. Especially if you're that senior company guy at Ranger Battalion, you're gonna be a JTAC. Every 13 Fox position in Special Operations groups, the 4 or whatever position, I don't remember off the top of my head. They're all JTAC positions. But our job at Special Operations Group is to basically be the program manager. Our job is to keep the currency of all the JTACs below us. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to track currencies. I'm going to do the trips, all that stuff. So it's a little bit different a world. So, and personally, I think too, you mentioned that you're only as good as the JTAC that trained you. For us, because we don't have JTACs like organic, that's where that integration comes in, right? That's why being a bro with your JTAC and getting beers and doing that sort of stuff, inviting them to all your training events, because they're probably going to turn around and invite you to theirs, get on those cast trips and that sort of stuff, because you're going to start creating JFOs who, the second that, that JTAC's like, dude, I know who this guy is. Awesome. I trust him. Hey, he's going to listen to the 9 line like he's supposed to, but he's not going to be like, oh, crap, is that right? Ah, crap, is that right? It's going to be, he's just going to basically do the gross error checks versus like micromanage everything about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a trust game. It's definitely 100%. Oh, yeah. And in the Marines, the JFOs definitely know who the JTACs are because they're usually the senior guys in the battalion. Like when they were PFCs, these guys were the corporals or junior sergeants. That might have been how that works. So they probably know their names and stuff. But yeah, we definitely work together. And then
that's the difference for us.
And then when I was at 10th Marines, I was one of the JFO primer instructors. So we would teach the guys before they went to the actual schoolhouse for JFO and JTAC. And we'd also keep the guys current. We were up there in regiment controlling everything. So I think the guys that I worked with on the East Coast were probably some of the best JFOs I ever worked with. Even that's including my Anglico guys. I got to Anglico thinking like all these dudes are going to be basically JTACs, which a lot of them are, but not completely. And I think overall, I thought 10th Marines JFOs were better than the Anglico JFOs that I worked with for the most part. And that's kind of how, every unit kind of varies. Like everybody and every person's different. Some people really get into, some people are only there to get the qualification so they can walk around and be like, I'm a fucking JTAC or I'm a fucking JFO, like I did it. And then they don't realize that there's a shit ton of work. Like you really have to like love it and be involved in it if you want to be good at it. It's one of those things. And that's what's the shitty part about the Marine Corps getting rid of like you doing your 3 years in that billet and then moving along is 3 years is about the point where you really know what the hell's going on. Like you finally figured everything out. You understand multiple platforms. You understand the joint world. and you're better keyed in on planning. And then unless you're a WTI, like you go to the for us, we have JTAC evaluator, and then you have your WTI. Well, they have also JTAC instructor now. It changed right before I got out. But WTI is the highest. So unless you get WTI, you're going back to the battery to go be a fires chief. That's like the goal. Like, if I can get to WTI, then I could be a JTAC for the rest of my career.
And like you talk about the JFO primer for you guys, like the Army doesn't really dictate that, right? Like there's no, like every unit is different. And I think that's one of the other problems, right? So a lot of times what you'll see is like privates sitting at JFO school, right? Like these dudes who are probably at AIT only a couple months, like they probably got to their unit and their unit's like, oh shit, we need a JFO. You got slots, go. It's not necessarily senior guys, but there's also no real train up that I've seen, so like when I was at Carson, even so I went from being a fire support specialist, so just being a dude on a team, all the way up to being, a company fire support sergeant, battalion, and I eventually made it up to the divisional artillery and the division. And at one point I was the division JFO program manager, and I can tell you, like, no one ever brought up a primer, like what we would call a JFO 101, introduction to JFO shit, basically, right? Running them through basic sims, stuff like that, just getting them ready to go to school. No one ever brought it up. You'd be like, hey, do you have a JFO 101 program? No. Well, why not? Like you were asking, but the other thing too is that, the JFO course, I will tell you right now, in my personal opinion, is more about numbers than quality, right? Really? So it's quantity over quality. You're getting guys in and it's like, hey, did you plot that on your map? No. Well, why not? Like, where are your friendlies at? I don't know. Like, so it's
dude, no way.
Like that. Yeah, it's stupid shit like that. But if you read the cut sheet, it says situational awareness, right?
No, yeah.
Like if you and I were to go to at JTAC school and you didn't plot shit on your map, you're a no-go. Like you're a sim no-go.
I dropped a kid from our primer course for that. So the primer course, what we would do is we would teach the exact same material that they taught at TCP school. So, and when you finished TCP school, they gave you a CD with all the PowerPoints on it and the publications and stuff. So that way, every JTAC had all the knowledge that they needed. Yeah. And then they would come back, and then we would take it and update our slides with anything that they had updated. And so they basically went through TCP school because we know, like, this is the first time you're ever hearing it. So this is like, you're going to fuck it up and you're going to get, all messed up. Like it's an intro. That way, when you go to the actual school, because ours is pretty tough, they will fail you. Like I know there's plenty of people that have failed both JFO and TCP school, which is why we did the primers. And so they'll go to that course and having heard everything already and having already done like 4 or 5 different sims and stuff like that. And I remember for a while, same thing. We needed guys to go become JFOs, and the primer course, it wasn't a numbers over, quality over quantity kind of thing, or quantity over quality kind of thing. It was kind of starting to get like that, but like our master was saying, like, hey man, this is like their intro to it. They're gonna fuck it up here, and then they're gonna go there and be good at it. Because there were some guys who were like, this guy shouldn't go. He's not ready. He might not make it. But one time there was a dude who did exactly what you're talking about, where he didn't have anything plotted on his map. Like he was trying to run missions and stuff like that. And then he's just like, I'm like, where's all your shit at? And I told my master sergeant, I remember telling him, like, dude, this guy can't go to school. Like he's gonna fail 100%. He's like, no, he's got to go. Like they're deploying in a couple months or whatever. And I'm like, I'm telling you, if you send him, you're just wasting a seat. He's gonna fail. And he's like, all right, we'll set up a sim and let me see it. And he comes back and he's like, all right, fucking find somebody else that can take his seat, because like we're not going to send somebody. It's a valuable seat, and every one of them needs to be filled. Every JTAC and every JFO has a spot that, someone needs them for one thing or another. So we can't really afford to send guys that aren't going to pass. So the primer course is like, was essential, I think.
Yeah. Well, and, in all honesty, like, I think that, so like, JTAC QC, like all the TAC Ps, like, and I'm talking E3 TAC Ps, right? Like, I mean, Airman First Class, they're in JTAC QC, and they're sitting there and they're like, yeah, our unit has a train-up program, right? Our unit has a train-up program. And then you talk to guys here at JFO, it's like, hey, what instruction did you get coming here? I did the Joint Fires Observer Familiarization on the Joint Knowledge Net, online.
Those are the worst.
What? Like, you did what? Like, that's all you did? And it's like, yeah. How long you been at your unit? 4 months. Oh,
And
great.
the only people that went through our primer course or who were required were people that were taking division fire seats. So if they were taking a second Marine division seat, then they went through our primer course to make sure that they went through. When I went to like TCP school, there were 2 recon Marines that were in my class, and they were both like told, they're like, dude, we were told on Friday we're going to school on Monday, and neither one of them are JFOs, FOs. They were both recon Marines, and I think one of them was a sniper, and they were both like, what the fuck did they throw us into? We're trying to help these dudes out because they had no idea of anything, and it's tough. It's like one of those things like you have to adapt, and it's weird. People always, it's hard to guess who's going to make it. For us, it's hard to guess who's going to make it through TCP school and who's not. Like, some guys you think are really good will go and fail some shit. They'll just get locked up on the radio or something like that, and it's
push to think.
Yeah, I always try to tell people, I'm like, you have to graduate TCP school and to be a good JTAC, you just have to be a person that can take a bunch of knowledge in at one time and then spit out a solution quickly that's safe,
Yep.
And if I can justify what I'm doing, like as an evaluator, if you could justify what you were doing, then I'm like, that's cool. But now if you start telling me some bullshit, like you can't you're doing some weird shit, but you really have no real reason or thinking behind it, well, then that's dumb. But if you have some thinking behind it and I get what you're saying, then I didn't make a big deal, but I might correct it and be like, this is a better way. But I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, it's just, you have to be a thinking person to be able to do that job. It's tough.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of pressure all at once because everyone's listening. Everyone's listening to the radio and everyone's hoping you don't fuck it up.
Yep. Yeah. I hope you don't smoke the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That
happens.
But I think that honestly, joint, like when you start talking, like I personally don't have a lot of faith in Army JFOs, right? And like, I'm not talking as like a JTAC, I'm talking as like a senior Army JFO. Mm-hmm. Coming out of school, I mean, they don't understand a lot of stuff. Like they don't understand, why on a bomb on coordinate, we do a system readback. They don't understand, like, it's taught right now. I mean, they're changing it. Thank God. At the JFO school, they teach them that a JDAM requires a system readback. Mm-hmm. When it's not weapon dependent, it's method of attack.
Yeah.
But you ask them like, why are you doing that? And it's like, oh, that's what I was taught at JFO school.
If you're a JFO in the Army, is that all you do? Are you now attached to like do you stay in the same spot? Does anything change for you, or do you just come back from JFO and then? Not
really. So it's just an additional shiny toy, basically, right? And that's what JFO is. It's a shiny toy.
Yeah.
And so our MTOD positions, or our authorized positions, are platoon FOs, and then there's one authorized position at the company level. So it's more than likely going to be the staff sergeant that's at the company level, who's going to be the JFO, because the lieutenants for us switch out so fast. They're probably going to get like one JFO currency in before it's time to boot them out of position. Whereas the staff sergeant's going to be in that position for 18 months to 24 months, right? So that dude's going to get a lot of sets and reps. He's probably already been a JFO for at least a year by the time he hits that team chief position. So it doesn't really change much for us. And then once you hit like the battalion level, that's pretty much it. You really no longer have to be a JFO. You're basically done at that point. Most of the time you'll see the E7s or like the E6s at battalion. They'll stay current as JFOs so they can be evaluators for us, because those are the guys that we like to have as the evaluators, because they have a broader spectrum of oversight versus why would I put a staff sergeant company team chief as a JFOE who has his own team to run, but now he's responsible for two other teams on top of his to ensure the guys are current, when there's already an E7 who's in charge of that battalion. Why isn't he just the evaluator? Why not make him responsible for that battalion?
Yeah.
But guys will come out of JFO school. And I'm like, hey, and I was an evaluator back at Fort Carson. And I'd run evals. And like, hey, open joint, joint pub 3-09.3. And they're like, what? Like, how do you not know what this manual is? They're like, I got my J-Fire and my 3-09.30. I'm like, great. Where's your CAS manual?
Yeah.
Where's this manual at? Oh, I don't have it. And it's like, why not? And it's, personally, I don't think it's a fault of any one individual. And I don't think it's a fault of like the instructors that are sitting at the JFO school. I think it's just, it goes back to that. This is how we've always done it, So everybody in the military has that. This is just how we've always done it. Right. And it's, well, why aren't we updating? Well, this is just how he's always done it. Well, great, but there's no backing behind that reason.
Yeah, that's the bane of everybody's existence with common sense in the military. Even on the Marine Corps, you're like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I feel like, within the forward observer community, it's a little bit better. This is how we've always done it, but that's because, so when I was teaching JFO primers, I would tell dudes like, okay, you guys all are forward observers, or for the most part, you guys are all forward observers, and you're used to this very strict, artillery script. This is me, just fire over, just fire out, blah, 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 back and forth. Like, I know I'm going to say this, and you're going to say this.
Yep.
And the air side's just not really like that. And I think because of that, if you're doing it right and you're constantly learning and you're constantly talking to pilots and pilots are talking to you and you're trying to figure shit out, like what's, you're thinking through it like a thinking man's game. You're talking theory about, well, if we tried this, would this work?
Yeah.
That kind of kills a little bit of this is how we've always done it kind of thing. And the things that are like that are written in blood. There's a reason why it's like we do it like this because of this.
Yep.
And,
but that's also how we generate the J-fire, right? How we've always done it. This is how we've always done it. How things like the J-fire are created, right? They take the tactics and techniques and put it in a manual.
Yeah.
And say, hey, this is best practice. And but it all goes back to like what you're saying, the constant training and communication. Always understanding that the script might change when you start talking CAS, and even so being at Fort Sill is probably one of the greatest opportunities because of just all the national, the multinational stuff I deal with. I mean, I've worked with French JTACs, Dutch, German, Canadians, Norwegians, British. I mean, just all kinds of that. And I've also worked with other nations' pilots, so because down at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls is a NATO, so it's an American school, but it's a NATO school as well, for fighter trainers, right? It's where they teach people how to be fighter pilots. But like Line 8 in NATO is a mandatory reback. So location of friendlies is a mandatory reback for NATO. So now that I've done this long enough here at Fort Sill, I now know that the second I get a Canadian pilot or I get a Canadian JTAC or a French pilot or a French JTAC, right, I'm going to automatically get that Line 8 reback. Yeah. But a lot of guys don't. They're like, why are you reading that back? It's not a requirement. But that just ties up comms. Like, who the hell cares? At least he knows where you are. He told you he knows where you are.
That's for sure. Like, that's definitely when experience comes into play. Like, everyone loves the A-10. Everyone's all about the A-10. But A-10 pilots are the worst pilots to fucking work with. Like, I love A-10s. I think it's great and stuff like that. I think they do great work. But they are 100% the worst pilots to work with. They are prima donnas hardcore, and they have a very specific way that they want to do CAS. And we have to tell our controllers, like when we would go out to Gila Bend, we would have to tell our controllers, like, hey, man, this is what to expect. You're not going to get readbacks from the section, okay? You're going to have them want to completely change your final attack headings and this and that. Yep. Like, they basically want you to say, here's the target, here's where I am, get it, Yep. And Marine Corps JTACs aren't like that at all. Like, we're very controlling. We're going to tell you exactly where we want you and where. And the problem with new Marine Corps JTACs is I don't know why they're so used to laser baskets that they only want to give dudes a 30-degree cone every time. And I'm like, dude, open this bitch up. There's nothing out there. Like, give them 80 degrees. Because if you don't give them 80 degrees, well, even if you do give them 80 degrees, they're going to ask for 140 or whatever. Because that's what the fucking A-10s do.
Well, and that's Air Force though. I mean, so going through JTAC QC, right? As a JTAC, right? And so mind you, I've worked with Marine Corps and Air Force, right? Marine Corps is headings. Everything is headings, right? Mm-hmm. You go Air Force and they're like, north, south, or reciprocal, right? I mean, that's just what they give them, right? That's 180 fucking degrees, right? Yeah. Either, obviously 90 degrees one way, 90 degrees the other way. But that's a big ass cone. And it's like, oh, I'm in from the north. Yeah, but from what fucking, like, where? Like, which
is acceptable depending on the attack type, and for us it's a big deal, and it's we try to get the pilots to understand, because we're like, hey man, we're also, while we're talking to you, I'm yelling a fire mission over here to this guy, like, hit that with mortars, like, I'm keeping you in an area for a reason, and sometimes they don't really understand that. And I remember we had an A-10 pilot. I think the guy gave him like 60 degrees or something like that, and he's like, the A-10 pilot comes back, was like, yeah, requesting north-south, looking north-south, plus reciprocal, plus minus 90 degrees. And I'm like, that's the entire fucking circle. Like he thinks he's like
360 degrees.
He thinks he's just gonna say some words real quick, and like we wouldn't understand what he's saying. And we're like, negative, bro. You have this window. Like that's just. Yeah. But that's one of those things again.
A lot.
But that's one of those things like the experience. It comes in like okay, this section is not going to give me or a division. They come in as a division a lot too. They're not going to give me readbacks. For one dude's going to give me readbacks, and he's going to take care of the rest of it. And that's just I can request it, but all I'm going to do then is probably end up having a conversation with the guy, and it's just going to extend the kill chain longer than I want.
It's actually funny you say that. So a couple weeks ago, I was out at Falcon Range here. All right. And I was working with the fighter training squadron, and so the aircraft show up, right? It's two T-38, so dry cast, right? But they're jets and they're pilots, so awesome. And the dude, so I did it just like just like you guys would. Any shooter is going to do a reback, right? Mm-hmm. Where for the Air Force, that's not how it works. It's the flight lead does the reback, and that's it. It doesn't matter if it's shooter. Unless it's a BOC engagement, that's it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get -1 rebacks. And so I'm like, hey, -1 good reback, -2 good reback. And the pilot was like, what? Like he literally was like, can you send the 9-line? I'm like, what do you mean? Can I send it? I already sent it. Like, what do you,
what are you doing?
What is going on? Yeah. Like what you flying a plane or something? Like, what are you doing?
Get your head out of the clouds.
And it's just like, but the pilot and I on the phone did a debrief on the phone afterwards. He's like, why'd you do that? I was like, because I was like, you might work with Marine Corps JTAC, sir. And if it's shooter, they're gonna want -1, -2 reback or -4, whatever, however many birds there are.
Well,
if everyone is shooting,
we request it no matter what. It doesn't matter what the mission is. It's always they already know. Hey, readback. Hey, -1 readback. No readback. Yeah, good readbacks. 2 go. And then you just wait on 2, and then.
And that's why I love working with the Marine Corps guys out of Fort Worth. Because so they're awesome. But we'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, hey, good reback, and then you'll get the hey -2 ready for reback. You know what I mean? And so he just instantly is like, hey, I'll give you my reback real quick, because what if -1 bomb misses?
Yeah,
right. And
well, they're supposed to be doing it. Yeah, they're supposed to be doing it internally, but I don't know, man. I like having, just because there's been so many fratricide events. I used to teach a fratricide class, and just seeing that, it's like. I'm trying to be, it's easy for you to be like, no, I got it. I'll be the only one reading back. Well, yeah, you're up there, though. We're like the ones down here where shit's going to actually be blowing up. So I'd prefer that everything be correct.
So, a couple weeks ago, we were doing training with the Canadian Special Forces JTAC, which they run a great JTAC program for their Special Forces side. It's a huge pipeline. It's months long, right? And that's just from like initial point to where they're like potentially ready, right? I mean, like they're not even operationally ready yet. But the student's sitting on the radio, and we're working with the F-18s out of Fort Worth, and I know the pilots really, really well. I've worked with them tons of times, and the dude's like, hey, okay, it's going to be, line 7's a laser, right? So Mark's a laser, but it's a laser. We're doing from what was briefed was supposed to be a BOC laser, right? So we were going to ground-based lace, and he's like, and doesn't correlate the aircraft to the JFO location, right? So the dude that's providing the lays doesn't even correlate him to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, doesn't do that. And then he just keeps telling us to do correlation with the aircraft, right? He's like, hey, go ahead and do target correlation with the aircraft. I'm like, bro, what is going on right now? And so finally, like, this is the JTAC in me. I look at my soul, because the pilot's like, hey, ready for rebacks.
Yeah.
Ready for rebacks, right? Like 5 fucking times the pilot's like, hey, dude, I'm ready for fucking rebacks. And the student is just like not paying attention, apparently. Right. And so I'd look at my JFO, right, and I'm like, all right, man, hey, call the fucking aircraft, get the reback. Like, he obviously wants to give you the reback because he understands, the execution template. And so my guy's like, oh, what? I can do that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, if your JTAC's gonna fucking kill you, like, yeah, please get the rebacks. Like, step in as a competent JFO, like, all right, go send rebacks, right? Because my JFO provided the targeting data, so he knows the targeting data. The only thing he probably doesn't know is 1 through 3, because that's not a JFO function for us. So he gets the rebacks, right? And then he's like, all right, ready for correlation. And I'm like, but it's a BOC mission. Like, why the fuck are we doing correlation? And I tell my soldier, I'm like, look, man, just get the aircraft onto us first. Like, get him on our position, because we're the people that are going to fucking die. Like, if something goes wrong, it's us that are dying, not the JTAC who's fucking 4 clicks to our east. Like, it's us. And so, so we roped the aircraft real quick, all good to go. And then we talked the aircraft onto the target for whatever fucking reason. And then all of a sudden the game plan 9 line comes out, or the game plan comes out, and he's like, yeah, Type 2 BOS bomb on coordinate. And I'm like, then why the fuck did I correlate?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on, dude?
My old JTAC E self is inside yelling like what are you talking about? Like that. I'm sitting there thinking of how long that's taking. And the fact that you roped an aircraft, which is very rare. We don't really do that in the Marine Corps. We teach it, but we don't do it.
Yeah. Well, so we had 2 IR strobes on the JFO OP, but my soldiers haven't had a lot of experience doing night missions, and so I was like, you know what, I'm going to show them the different ways of doing. I took a chem light out, so we did a buzzsaw. So I did a couple different things that you'll do. We did a VDL friendly correlation. So we did a couple different things that they could, see the differences.
Yeah.
Because I also wanted to show them that the pod can't see IR energy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, it's a FLIR pod, so forward-looking infrared radar, but it's not, or infrared, but it's not. It doesn't see IR pointers. It doesn't see IR strobes.
That's a big mistake a lot of people make. That's what happened in Afghanistan. There was a special forces team, the Air Force JTAC. They were under fire, so I think they were pulling back under fire, and the Air Force JTAC was correlating with the bomber, and I think it was Bone. I think it was a B-1 bomber, and he was like, hey, he's looking at him in his pod. And he's like, do you see any IR strobes? And the pilot fucked it up also. Was like, no, I don't see any. And he's like, okay, that's your target. It was actually his dudes firing back at the Taliban dudes, and That's the shit that happens, man.
So that's actually, the Fire Sport Master Gunner course, right? Part of it, so these Senior 13 Foxes, part of what we teach is JFO evaluation and JFO program management, right? Because these are the dudes that are going to run the evaluations, right? They're in charge of certification, qualification, all that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the first things I start with, right? Being a JTAC, I teach some of the air, the air classes in that course. That's the first thing I start with. Hey, what pods can see IR?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like IR strobes, IR pointers. And you're like, all of them. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, you're going to get your dudes killed.
Yeah.
But that again is a failure, whatever level it is, it's a failure. Right. So I was showing my guys all this stuff, and it's just, these, like you just said, like, the JTAC, the evaluator in me screaming, dude, I was losing it. These dudes are running. Obviously, Peltors, right? Ambient noise microphones. One of the JTAC instructors from the Canadian Special Forces guys texted me and said, "Are you yelling right now?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I am." Like, absolutely, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs right now because this dude is like, just like, if this was a real aircraft, I would have taken full control.
Yeah.
Like I would have got on the radio like as another JTAC and be like, "All right, you're gonna kill someone. Stop."
Yeah, you run into guys like that sometimes, man. Every unit, every job, everything, everyone has 10%, that bottom 10% that's fucking, you're just like, why is this dude here? Like, this dude should not be here. And it's frustrating. It's partially their fault because it's their job to know the job, right?
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And it's a big boy job. Like, you're going to a unit, and normally you're the only dude there that can do your job. So you can't just be like, I don't know what I'm doing. You fucking have to know it. That's just, there's no exception. And if you don't know it, people are going to realize that you don't know it very quickly, and you just look like an asshole. But some of these dudes, I don't know, man. I've definitely had some guys that just, same thing like what you're saying. You're listening to them talk. I took a kid, I off my last deployment, when we were out there was a kid who didn't get designated before we deployed. So on the deployment, we were on ship, so it wasn't a big deal. And we would go to like Kuwait and shit. We were like, hey, we're going to try to get him designated and do his controls and shit like that. And this dude would consistently like fuck it up, call in his own position, do unsafe shit. And I told his company commander in his first start, I'm like, you don't have a JTAC anymore. He is not allowed to control live air at all, all, unless I'm there. I'm the only one that's allowed to control with them, like me and my captain. I'm like, we're the only ones that can control with this dude because he has no idea what he's doing and he's fucking it up real bad. He's gonna get somebody killed. I was like, so they ended up putting him on mess duty on the fucking ship. I remember.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, well, that sucks to suck, man. Like, know your fucking job, Part of it is their own fault for not getting in the pubs and reading it, and part of it also is because they don't have good mentorship where someone is sitting them down and going, hey, man, this is This is how it's supposed to be. This is what it's supposed to be like. But also, it's on the individual. Like, I try to make a point of sitting down with pilots and being like, hey, so what do you think about this? You know, just like pick their brain. Like, so when I do this, what's the problem here? And, you know, I just don't get it where guys don't do that. You know, I'm always trying to, I'm curious. I'm a curious individual. So I'm always trying to learn more about it. And,
absolutely.
And if you haven't been on the hooks for a while as a JTAC, it's definitely a job that, you know, your skill level depends on how much you're training. Oh
yeah, it's perishable as hell.
Yeah, it's like, for sure. I mean, so, you know,
but like, you know what I think what pissed me off the most was this dude's like, I mean, my JFO was on, because I mean, obviously there's two, so it's myself and then my buddy who's the master gunner instructor, like I was saying earlier, right? We're probably the two most senior JFOEs on the installation. And you know, so we're sitting here and we're like, hey man, call the JTAC, like say, hey, you know, what's going on? Like ask for updates. Like if the radio's silent and you don't know what the fuck's going on, ask. Like, get on the radio, ask. Especially since you're on the strike net and you're monitoring the strike net and you're not hearing anything, probably should fucking like get on the radio and be like, hey, you know, JTAC, JFO, what's an update? Hey, are you hearing the aircraft? The aircraft requesting readbacks. You know, help your JTAC out. And the dude just wasn't answering the radio. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? And like, this is the pilot calling, we're calling, you know. But I think what pissed me off the most is that, you know, there's an F-18 flying around. Dude, it took us 35 minutes to execute a bomb on coordinate.
Jesus.
40 minutes. Like, and the aircraft only checked on with like 55 minutes of playtime.
I bet that pilot was pissed.
Like, well, my buddy texted me. My buddy was the -2, right, in the flight. And he's like, yeah, man, what the fuck? I was like, I don't know, bro. Like, but I mean, you know, so the dude got that one control. Like, that was it. It took him off the radio. Right?
Yeah.
Because he burned all that time. And then the next engagement, dude sends an F-18 and then their contract cast, which was 2 Canadian Alpha jets, we're in the final attack heading and strafes a target like a K away from us.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, thanks, bro. I mean, you know, it's dry cast, so whatever, right? So just that, you know, it was a debrief note for me. You know, and I walked up to the JTAC instructor. He's like, yeah, if it's about the strafe tracking. And I was like, all right, cool, thanks.
Cool, got it. Yeah, that's good, man. I mean, people have to realize, like, I try to make it very clear, you know. So for us, the JFOs, a lot of times we're 0861s, but we'd also get guys from the infantry. We'd get maybe an engineer or something like that, or someone from CLB that they could have. So if they were doing convoys in Afghanistan, they'd have somebody that knew how to talk to an aircraft. And I tell them straight up, I'm like, hey, here's the deal. Like, straight up, this job is serious as fuck. Like, it's stressful. And if you can't handle it, you need to let someone know that you can't fucking do it. I was like, because the end state of you not doing your job well is getting someone killed that wasn't supposed to get killed, or killing yourself, or killing your other teammates, you know, or endangering an aircraft. I was like, these are real world things, like, and our rules are written in blood, and it's serious. And I'm like, the reason we do this is because of this reason or this, you know. I was like, you tried to like explain it to him, like, you know, even in training, you know, I'd see someone controlling like a Huey or something like that, and door gunner would be going at it. I remember walking up to an OP one time, and this is the exact scenario I'm thinking about. I remember walking up to an OP one time. My guys were already training, and they had a control going. I was like, hey, who's controlling that? And one of the JFOs was like, oh, I'm Staff Sergeant. And I'm like, hey, is that your target? And he's like, no, it's the one like 300 meters to the west. And I'm like, well, fucking tell him, man. I'm like, he's just sitting there shooting the target. I was like, what if that was real life? I'm like, you got to quit thinking about it like you're on the fucking range and he's just shooting metal and you're having a good time sitting on the OP. I'm like, if that was real life, that is a vehicle or whatever the target you got painted was. You're shooting the wrong fucking thing. Stop him and get him on the right fucking target. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and it's just like, it's trying to get people to not see it as a training, as a range with some scraps of metal that they're shooting at, but seeing it as like, you know, whatever suburban area or whatever war zone, and understand that there's civilians in buildings. Like, if you're shooting the wrong building, you're probably shooting one that has civilians in it. You know, that's the reality. And what's the impact that's going to have not only on your unit's mission, because now you killed civilians, ROEs are going to change probably. You're going to get benched, and everyone else in the AO is going to have to take a new test to make sure that they understand, you know, not to blow up buildings that have civilians in it.
And now you've lost the hearts and minds. Like,
it's just like, the reality of fucking up that job is the consequences are so dire. Like, it's like, dude, you can't fuck it up. And you try to tell people that, and people don't fully get it until they go overseas and they kind of see shit blow up, and they're like, all right, okay, I get it. Like,
so I can actually kill the wrong person.
Like, I'm trying to get the right thing to blow up. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man.
That's actually what we talked about at JTAC QC, where one of the instructors, one of his like first classes was, one of the classes he taught was like urban cast, talk on, stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, look, man, he's like, if you explode the wrong thing, you're going to jail, right?
Yeah.
That's what he started with. He's like, you explode and he said, explode, right? The wrong thing, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, like if you kill the wrong thing, you're going to jail. Like, unless it is 100% accidental, like something unforeseen, uncontrollable, right? Like that the investigation proves that you absolutely did nothing wrong, right? And that person just, collateral damage, right? If you drop a bomb and physics doesn't go your way, like it probably is not going to, got it, right? But, if you purposely engage the wrong thing, like you're going to jail. Like there's no dancing around that. And that's one of the things we try and hit, especially when I interact with JFOs, or even just forward observers in the Army, is like, hey man, like you're talking about something that can kill lots of people really quickly. Yeah. A 155 round can kill a lot of people very quickly. You're a JFO and you're starting to work cast teams, and you're talking to a buff or a bone who's carrying a 2,000-pound JDAM. That's even more people, right? And that's potential. And then you start talking war zones. I mean, now you're potentially killing friendlies. Now non-combatants. There's a whole bunch of extra especially like cultural sites. Like you blow up a mosque and you're not supposed to, like done.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's just so it's here we kind of same scenario as you. We were up on the OP. So here at Fort Sill, there's an event called Red Lake CTE, right? So culminating training event or exercise. Sorry. It's for the FA Bolic officers. They do a walk and shoot. So we're going to put them within danger close of artillery. Danger close. I say that loosely. It's not.
I was
really
like, wow,
close.
Really?
It's 700 meters because it's the closest we could convince the range control safety officer to let us do it. But they walk toward, basically they're echeloning fires, right? They're where, hey, now you're getting close to the objective, and the objective is still getting bombarded by artillery. They shoot the guns. They do what's called that's the walk and shoot, where they echelon into fires. And they do like another northeast lane where they basically are going to do a patrol. They have to plan fire support around that patrol. And then we also would do a cast integration. So we'll do SEAD, right? We'll have live jets flying live artillery. And we had a controller on who he talks to so one, he didn't know where the fuck the target was, right? Even though he told us, like, yeah, hey, tracking, right? I pulled up the imagery, like, hey, this is your target. Yep, okay, got it. All right, hey, man, if you look at this part of the impact area, yep, okay, hey, got it. All right, come this direction, right? He's like, yep, got it. And then all of a sudden the aircraft comes in and strafes it, first one, right? Strafes. And I was like, hey, man, that's not your fucking target. And he goes, yeah, it is. I'm like, no, the fuck, it's not. Like, and so I get on the radio as the range safety officer, and I'm like, hey, abort.
Yeah.
I put the aircraft back into the overhead. I'm like, stand by. You just strafed the wrong target. I have to confirm that that's a safe target, right? Because out here at Fort Sill, there's a very specific targets that we can engage with fixed wing guns, right? I can typically drop like a BDU-33 on whatever the hell I want. Once you start dropping like live bombs, Mark 84s, whatever, because we can drop 82s, 84. I could drop pretty much any live bomb, with the exception of like GBUs. I can't drop a lot of GBUs out here just because of the the weapon danger zone. Yeah. So he strafes the target. Thank God. Because I asked the pilot, I was like, hey, what's the put your pod on that target grid. And so, he does real quick, and I'm like, all right, thank God that's in. So we have 3 cast circles, basically, or, cast 1, 2, and 3. And it plots perfectly in cast 1. Like, thank freaking God. Because if not, I would have had to report it to range control, because those targets are safed. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I abort the aircraft, and I look at the JTAC, like, what the hell are you doing, man? And it's just, it goes back to that, and he was going to roll with it. Like, he wasn't, thinking about it. And I'm like, dude.
We all fuck up. We all fuck up when we're coming up. It's just part of the job, and that's what the training is for. But you got to fuck up and learn from it. The shitty part is when guys mess up and then they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Then you're like, you know what? That's when we start looking at pulling their designation and pulling their MOS from them. It's like, dude, you're unsafe. Oh well, I mean, don't let me think it's like simple process. Even the kid.
Oh no, I know it's not. But it's hard. It's harder for us. I guarantee you.
Yeah, it's all stupid. That's one of those things. It's like that should be super easy to just get rid of. Like, hey, dude, sorry, you're just not cutting it. Like, you're done. You know.
Well, you know, we talk about that in the 13. So specifically, we talk about that for certification for us, right? So I have a dude fail what we call a FIS cert. Right? It's just our certification qualification. If I have a dude continually failing FIS cert, why can't I kick him the fuck out of the Army?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, he can't cut it. Like,
he's not earning his pay here.
You know. Yeah. Like, so, like, we had a dude at Carson. I want to say I put him through 3 or 4 FIS certs, and he failed every single time. Right? It wasn't always for the same thing, which was good, right? But the commander took that, like, look, he's growing. I'm like, sir, he's done 4 of these, and he's still fucking failing. Like, at some point, we just got to cut sling load. Like, get rid of this dude, you know. But like the same thing for JFOs. Once you're a JFO, whether you're current or not, you get to keep the identifier in the school. Yeah. Like, it is hard for me to go in and remove that kind of crap. Like, that goes big Army. Like, for me to take away an additional skill identifier for like JFO for us, right? Because it's just a shiny little toy. It has to go up like to the division command level for me because like, yeah, a lieutenant colonel can give it, but it goes all the way up the chain to remove it, you know, and then to start justifying kicking someone out of the Army. Like, I can relieve for CASU, so I can give you an evaluation, right? So if you're an NCO, you're done, right? Like, if you fail 2 FIS certs, I'm going to give you a relief for cause evaluation, and your career's probably over. I mean, because at that point, Big Army is going to see that when you go up for your Big Army boards, and just that's it. You know, and if you don't PCS, like if you're an FO and you don't PCS before you get looked at for E7, you're probably not going to make E7 because you probably won't make E6 because you're going to be that guy in the unit that got relieved.
Yeah.
And everyone is still going to be there and know who you are.
Yeah. And for the Marine Corps like that, it's a small community. That's the good thing about 0861 community is that we're small. And if you suck and I can't do anything about it and you're going to another unit, I'll do them a favor of giving them a call or an email and be like, hey man, here's this guy coming and here's the issues. Like, maybe they can do something with him. Maybe I suck as a leader, but you at least should be aware, like, you know, here's the problems that we're dealing with. But
well, you know, so I mean, as you know, right, with the JTAC folder, right, you know, you have that folder, and we've created that now for the 13 Fox community, right? So it's now like you're supposed to come out of AIT with this folder, right? And it's going to be your 13 Fox Love Me book. It's going to have every qualification, certification, everything you've done in this folder. But what we also turn around is we've added to our digital training management system as well, right? So there's a whole bunch of time spent on putting this stuff into the what we call DTMS, right? And so now, even if you're like you suck as an FO and you PCS and you lose your folder, right, or you lose the contents of your folder, all that new unit has to do is go on DTMS, search your name, and they can pull up your entire log. Yeah, so you can't even hide it.
That's how the Marine Corps was going on my way out. I was that last like 2-year period. They started implementing it. The last 2 years I was in, and I was in the process of like trying to put every one of my controls into this digital log. Yep. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, this would be way better if you just started out like that. But and you're right though, because in the JTAC community, like, you have that folder, and if your command is like, you're no longer designated because you suck. If they don't keep your folder, you can just take that folder to your next unit and be like, yeah, I'm a JTAC. I just need to get, because every unit you have to get redesignated, or they have to sign off on the designation letter. And more than likely, they're just going to sign off on it. So I don't like the digital system, but it is good for JTAC management, but it's also not a very streamlined. I don't know how it is for you guys, but for the Marine Corps, when I was doing it, it wasn't a very streamlined process to upload your controls. You have to go through and click every little box for like every thing that it was nighttime, fixed wing with an IDF mark.
It's the same thing. Yeah,
and it's like,
it sucks. It does. But it's awesome because what if you lose your folder? You know what I mean? Because I put my my QC certificates in there, my eval forms in there, my anything that has to do with my JFO folders or my JTAC folders on there, and all my controls are on there. Now the shitty part is that's contract based. So like, what if the contract expires and then you get locked out of that program and you're not on top of your shit and you haven't printed, because like every couple months I go on there and I print my control log and I print, I've got a digital copy of my eval form on my computer, and I've got it on my personal laptop, and I've got a hard copy in my folder. But, I still go in there and I download and make sure nothing has changed and that everything is still, current on there, and I just print it off real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried. I did the same thing. I would, when I started getting everything fully uploaded, I would start, you got to keep it up to date. And my whole thing was like, if I decide to get out, like someone was telling me like, hey, you only have to put down controls from the last year. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm putting everyone on here because if I decide to get out or I go somewhere else and they pull this up, I want it to be a complete record. Yep. And then right before I got out, I printed out my most up-to-date log, log. So I actually have my IPR sitting over there. It has all the shit in it. I don't think I'll ever use it again, but I think I'm beyond
you never know.
Those, maybe.
He's got it.
Maybe I'm not beyond those days, but I'm pretty sure I am. My mom won't like it if she hears that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, one of the things that I'd love to see is that same program put in place for like JFOs, right? Yeah. Or just even 13 Foxes in general. It is a very tailorable system. Huh. And so if you do it right, in my opinion, it should start at like AIT, right? So like Fort Sill, we should have God rights, right? The Fire Sport Master Gunner Instructor, the JFO School Chiefs, and then like the AIT Chiefs, we should have God rights, right? So I should always be able to go in there and basically be able to, hey, X division, let's pull their report. Let's see where it's at. Because then I can go brief the 1-star, the Field Artillery Commandant, like, hey, sir, you want to know about JFO numbers across the force. Here you go. Right? Oh, something like that. And if you do it right, I can create that file right at AIT, and then basically it just follows, I click release. Okay, hey, you're going to this unit. Okay, hey, I'm going to release it to that unit. You know what I mean? I could release it to the program manager or whoever at Fort Carson, right? Yeah. And then he could put you into the system. Then you go to JFO school. Okay, hey, now JFO school would automatically have rights to it because of the JFO school. And then they can go in and add all your JFO shit, right? Hey, he completed X academics. Hey, he completed this. Put the dates, because that way a year later when you're due for your academics again, now they're amber, now they're red, right? So you specifically can keep track of. Because one of the things you see right now is, I'm current. Well, where's your log? Oh. Yeah. Well, you don't know where your log is. How do I know you're current? Oh, I'm just current. I don't think that's how that works. And it's, so I think that, in the digital age, we should be going to a digital system. And the framework is already there, whether it's tactics.
It's just got to be improved, yeah.
Yeah, which, tactics, which is what the Air Force uses. Ajax is what Special Operations uses. They're the same fucking thing. It's probably the same system as you guys use to some level, right? There's green, amber, red on it. It tracks my controls. It tracks events. It tracks everything like that. I can put the fuck I want in there. I can track my medical with it if I wanted to. So by physical, all that sort of shit's in there.
It becomes part of our your individual I don't remember what they call it, but it's part of the operations, the S3, the training log. Yeah, it's just another page on your training log.
Yeah. So why not create a digital version? And I'd love to see that. I doubt I ever will. I know the guy that creates the SOCOM system, he said it would cost like $500,000 or $700,000 one time for the Army to create a JFO system that's the exact same. One time, $700K, right? Shit ton of money, right? I mean, it's a metric fuck ton of money. Especially for a program that I don't think the Army is for sure it wants to keep.
The military is the worst, man. They throw money at all kinds of shit that they're not going to use.
Yeah, well, one of the stupidest things that ever is like all the, fucking, for example, for us, uniforms, right? Like multicam is no longer a thing for us. We're no longer allowed to call it multicam. Oh, really? Right? It is Scorpion. It is OCP. That's what it's called now, right? The only time we can say multicam is when we talk about Operation Enduring Freedom, right? That their uniform is multicam.
Is there any difference?
No, it's like shades. So this is multicam, right? Yeah. Technically, this is multicam. This is Cry. And then this is Scorpion. Yeah. There's no
at least you guys aren't using that gray shit anymore.
Oh my god, yeah. So that's called UCP, Universal Camouflage Pattern. Worst billion-dollar investment ever.
The Marine Corps is like, we need new uniforms, and we did it in 2001, and we're like, just give us a green one and the desert one, and we're good. And we haven't changed shit since then.
Us were like, give us some green, some
the Navy
brown.
Switched to blue, and now they're using like multicam now. Because even they were this is kind of dumb if we fall off the boat.
Well, so I heard a rumor that if you're on a ship and you fall in the ocean and you're wearing the blue uniform, there's supposed to be like a water activated dye in it, like salt water activated dye.
I've
Like
heard that, but I don't think that's true.
personally, I was like, all right, well, let's go test it, kick someone in the ocean.
But the reality is nobody wears those camis on ship. When they're on ship, when they're working on ship, if they're wearing that on ship, that ship's in port and it's like not going anywhere. But if they're going to be underway, they're all in coveralls and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say like coveralls.
They're different
like whatever
colored coveralls and shit.
Yeah, or like the commander, the captain's probably in his fucking class Bs or whatever.
No, he'll be in coveralls too.
That's it. Oh yeah, see, but yeah,
they're all in coveralls.
But like but it's like this. But like I technically can't wear multicam, right? But like you can't see the difference.
I'll say who would actually spot the difference.
Well, the only way you'll know the difference is like the patches, like the pockets are different. So on our scorpion pattern, it's a full square. On multicam, it has a flap. Right. So it's stupid shit, dude. Like it's the dumbest thing ever. And they're like, oh, that's unauthorized.
We just get harassed by having camis that are faded. They're like, you can't wear those. Like, why? There's no holes in them. They're faded, but fuck it, man.
And it's like, and it's, I don't know. We just, rumor was that the reason why we went away from multicam is because Cry wouldn't sell us like 49% of the patent or whatever. Or they wanted like some ridiculous $ to like buy basically half of the patent, right? So that way the Army could produce it at their own level, not having to contract everything out. Because we use so many different contractors that, I think Cry wanted to be the producer of multicam because that's who created the pattern anyways. So I think that they wanted, and I can't blame them. It's a huge product for them.
Yeah.
Everything is fucking multicam. And I think that the rumor was that they just wouldn't sell it or whatever. I don't know. You know how the rumor mill goes. Or they wanted some astronomical price that the Army just didn't want to pay. But now that we've created Scorpion that's multicam, I think the difference is, if I remember correctly, someone said the difference is like the shade of the brown. So technically we're not committing patent we're not violating patents because the shade is different.
You made a difference.
Yeah, but it's the same fucking pattern. Like, I don't know.
If you try to change anything on a Marine Corps uniform, you get fucking backlash immediately.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
Like, we went from where we could roll our sleeves. They were like, all right, we're no longer rolling sleeves in the summertime. And people were like, what the fuck? Like, it was like, some people didn't mind. Some people don't mind having their sleeves down all the time.
Yeah.
And some people were like, what the fuck, man? Like, we roll sleeves in the summertime. Plus, it's hot as shit. Like,
yeah.
And
I wish we could.
What's that?
We can kind of roll sleeves, but like the Army, we do everything command discretion. So like everything in the Army, they're like, hey, it's authorized, but it's up to your commander. And it's like, well, then what? How the fuck's it authorized?
It's weird. When I first came in, so like I said, we have desert camis and we have green camis. And when I first came in, I got to the fleet in 2007. It was up to the command there on what camis you wore, if you wore green or desert. So you would come on base and you'd see people in all different camis. And like for us, our unit, we would wear greens all the time, except for the last week of the month, you would be in deserts. And then if you had been tapped for deployment and you were about to start your workup, then you would switch to desert. So you were like, usually if you saw someone in desert, you're like, they're probably going to be deploying here pretty soon.
Yeah.
But it was such a mess. Then they went to like seasonal, and that's how it is now. It's like, or no, it's not anymore. It was deserts in the summer and then greens in the winter, fall and winter. And then they went to greens all year, and which really pissed me off because I came off deployment and I have a shit ton of desert camis from deploying so much. Yeah. And I had one pair of greens that I was like, and I was getting out, I had less than a year left. And I was like, I'm getting out. Like, I don't want to buy any more camis. And these were just too beat up. And I had to go buy another pair of fucking camis because we were wearing greens all the time instead of deserts. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. That's just one of those military things, the uniformisms and stuff. But before I let you go, I'm going to have to let you go here in a minute. But before I do, I want you to maybe what kind of advice would you have if there's somebody out there that's thinking about joining the Army as a forward observer? Would you what are your recommendations, and what kind of advice would you give them for their like initial career, mentorship?
One of the biggest things is just know the basics, right? Like, don't ever forget the basics, because too much you'll see staff sergeants, sergeant first classes who can't even do basics. Mm-hmm. So don't ever forget the basics. Always be able to do the basics. That's the standard we train to. So don't ever forget that. Always continue learning. Open manuals, read the manuals. If you don't understand, ask. If you still don't understand, even ask. Getting the question answered, ask for it to be demonstrated. We have call for fire trainers in every single fucking unit, every single installation. So get in the sim, ask for it to be demonstrated. PT, I hate organized PT with a passion, but as a 13 Fox, we have to be extremely physically fit. That's probably one of the biggest things I would say is, do the Army bullshit PT, but make sure you get after your own shit. Because you need to be better than who you're supporting, because you're the odd man out. Mm-hmm. When you're an infantry platoon, you're the only 13 Fox. You're the only one. Like, that's it. So you need to give those guys every reason to know you mean business. And PT, knowing your shit. I mean, those infantry officers, they know enough to basically be dangerous. But those senior NCOs, they've worked with enough FOs that if you don't seem to fit the bill, they're going to oust you, and that's it. So that's where going back to the basics, opening manuals. Don't be afraid to ask. And just understand that it's a lot of work, but it's worth it in the long run. Because you'll start seeing guys, you'll start to find yourself really quickly if you start setting yourself aside from your peers. Growing up in the FIST community, for a while we didn't promote past E7 to E7 very quickly. But now you're seeing those stars who were those guys that were hungry from the get-go and never forgot, knew the basics, and they remembered everything up the way, and they continued to learn. They're starting to get promoted faster, which is awesome. Which is awesome for us. And so that's probably the biggest thing. Know the basics, and just get after everything about the job. PT, manuals, knowledge, everything. And always be hungry to do more. Go to school. If you find out about a school, ask to go. The worst they're going to say is no.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And then ask again.
And come with a reason why you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. JFO, right? If you're not a JFO and you're a 13 Fox, you're wrong. Go to JFO school. If you're a team chief and you haven't been in the Joint Firepower course, go to the Joint Firepower course, right? What a lot of people forget is, yes, it says joint, but that is part of our job, right? So be hungry, go to joint schools, because that's only going to set you aside from your peers. Because a lot of times you'll see Army guys stick to Army schools and they don't go out into the joint world, so they fall behind. So be hungry, go to schools, know the basics, and don't be an asshole is really the biggest thing.
Don't be an asshole. That's always good advice.
But be an asshole in the right way, So like, be confident, but be humble.
You got to be a solid, sarcastic asshole.
Yeah, be a humble asshole is exactly what I tell my soldiers. So
I always tell people too, like you said, like, ask questions. It always, to me, there's always a guy in a unit who never asked questions when he was younger, and he got promoted. Now he's like a sergeant or a staff sergeant, and he never asked the question. And now there's some basic shit that he doesn't know, and now he definitely doesn't want to ask the question, because he should be the one that knows it if anyone does. And it's just like, dude, if you would have just asked the question, initially and found out, then you wouldn't be in this position. But now you're like, you can tell when someone doesn't know. They're like, I can do this, but I'm going to let Johnny get a rep in because, he needs the work. And it's like, bitch, you don't know what you're doing, do you? Like, just be honest and let's say you suck and let's fix it, like.
So one of the reasons why I say know the basics is because one of the biggest changes here at Fort Sill has been specifically for our NCO Academy. So the Staff Sergeant course for us, which is the Advanced Leader course, it's the first MOS specific NCO Academy for us. To basically pass, you have to be able to do skill level 1 task, which is the basics. Can you do an adjust fire? Can you, unaided? Can you call for fire? Can you do a Army attack aviation brief? Can you do, can you perform the basic requirements? Because what we're doing is we're certifying you at the ability to do the basics before we teach you the next level shit, right? So dudes are arguing like, this is a Staff Sergeant course. This is a Staff Sergeant course. Why am I getting kicked out for failing, adjust call for fire?
Yeah, like, why are you failing as a Staff Sergeant? Why are you failing an adjust fire mission?
Why are you failing an adjust fire mission? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So that's why I always say know the basics, but be fucking humble and accept criticism and learn from it, right? If you come in as a private, don't fucking expect to be like, if you were the star in AIT, you're probably not going to be your star.
Nobody fucking cares, man.
Yeah, no one fucking cares if you got Top Gun at AIT. No one fucking cares. Like, good on you while you're at AIT. Welcome to the real Army, where we're now going to beat the shit out of you with knowledge. I mean, because that's what it turns into. you have to learn. So
Yeah, 100%.
that's definitely it. Basics, be confident, but be humble and get after it. Be, hungry, be just willing to learn and just go to fucking school and volunteer to go to school and volunteer to do shit that's going to better not only you, but the Army.
Volunteer to go to civilian school for sure. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to college.
Go to college, take some writing courses, because there's nothing worse than seeing somebody write an email with a bunch of misspellings and shit. And I'm like, you know what? This dude's really going to be heard when he gets out in the real world. And companies see your stupid writing, like you can't even spell words, correctly, and you're sending that shit out like, oh, it's crazy.
Hey, man,
take a writing course.
F7 on Word, it finds everything, right?
right. So before I let you go, are there any organizations, or do you want to shout out your own social media or anything like that?
Honestly, man, I don't think so. I mean, it's, the guys I work with here at Fort Sill, Robbie, and some of the Army Multi-Domain Targeting Center guys here, that kind of got me where I am now. The Master Gunner, Sergeant First Class Dubois, and just all the guys that I've worked with in the past. I don't have a lot of Marine friends. Got a lot of Army friends. So there's not a lot of people that I like to shout out, but there's a few. Denny, he's an awesome guy. Sergeant Dubois, awesome guy. Multi-Domain Targeting Center here at Fort Sill, which is brand new to us. It's a new concept, so they're still building out here. But I don't really think there's anybody off the top of my head that I can scream to.
No, that's cool.
But yeah.
I always try to because a lot of guys get involved in organizations and stuff like that. So dudes will shout out like Rubicon, Team Rubicon, or Semper Fi Fund, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
you always get the praise, the Army guy. Hey, Field Artillery Army guy. Hey, join the Field Artillery Association. I mean, do you, boo boo? That's what I always say. I mean, that's do what you want. But honestly, probably the biggest shout out I could give right now is to the 23rd Infantry Regiment. That's probably the biggest thing for me. That was my first unit in the Army. Super huge ties back to them. And then our Facebook page, Surviving the Peace. It's all about joining veterans and families and current guys, who need help but aren't willing to get it. We're here to listen and help you out. So it's called Surviving the Peace on Facebook. Feel free to hit us up. We'll add you. But it's just basically a network. We're trying to create as big of a network as we can. So if you have a buddy who kind of falls off the net and you need help trying to track them down, we have dudes literally coast to coast and in other countries that are on that page that can, you give us the info, we'll try and track down that person and help you find them.
That's sick.
So
that's pretty awesome.
Yes. So, yeah, man, I appreciate it. I've listened to a few of your podcasts now, love them. So,
No, I appreciate you coming on. It's good to see you. I want to get more. Like I was telling, so your name came up because I was telling Denny. I was like, yeah, I'm looking for an Air Force like CCT or JTAC that can kind of come on and we can talk about the differences and the minutia between the two branches and their how they attack the same job. And so this is perfect. This is I want to get more people on. I don't want people to think that this is just a Marine Corps podcast or just an Anglico podcast, because I have a lot of Anglico guys that come on. I want it to people to be like anything. I'm waiting on a response. I invited one of my old professors to come on because he's a geologist, and he went to like Africa and did all this shit with the mining companies, and he has a picture of him like surfing off the coast of Sudan, or not Sudan, one of the countries in Africa. He's like surfing off the coast like while they're out there drilling for oil and shit. And I'm like, nice. He's got all these wild stories. I'm like, dude, that people with cool stories, I want to come on. And like I said, your experience is similar but different, and it's good for people, especially the guys that are out there listening, that guys and girls that may want to join and want to know what the differences are. Obviously, the Marine Corps is better, but that's just it's neither here nor there. Either here nor there, but
whatever.
No,
I was an Army guy. I'd say I'd rather join the Air Force, but that's just
I do want to. I will have you come on again at some other point, man. And we'll talk about your deployments and stuff, because we didn't even get in. I mean, we're over 2 hours and we didn't even get into any of that stuff. So
that's usually how it is.
Cool.
But I'll shoot you the MARSOC guy info here. There's actually a Naval Special Warfare guy over at that same place. And then there's a really legit former Air Force JTAC over there too.
Cool. Have them check out the episode or the podcast, and if they like the format, for sure we'll set something up.
Yeah, actually they're running me through my some SOCOM based sims tomorrow. So nice. I'll let them know tomorrow and see if either one of them want to hit you up. because they're JFO instructors currently. So they have a very good plug-in, and they're also very legit, just down to earth dudes. So
sick.
Always willing to bash and then improve the community. So
for sure, you have to, right? Brutally honest.
I have to.
All right, man. Well, like I said, thanks again for coming on. And
course,
everyone out there, make sure to check out my website, jkramergraphics.com, and my Instagram is jkramergraphics. And then I have the backup Instagram, which is actually Former Action Guys. So I might switch that up one day and make that my main one instead of my backup one, but whatever. It is what it is. But anyway, all right, everyone, have a good day.